34-yard line. Great grab.
There's a Hoosier down already.
Fernando Mendoza is on the ground.
I did not see it.
So Fernando gets decked on the first play of the ball game. Now he steps up.
He's going to be all right.
And Mendoza takes the snap, wants to throw it, fires it down the field. It's for Elijah Serrani. Makes the catch. Touchdown! It'll be a 28-yard field goal. Here's the snap. Fielding kicks the ball. It is wide. It is wide. Wide to the left. He missed it. Indiana wins. Indiana has beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes, the #1 team in the country.
Whoever thought the Hoosiers would be here, but now the Hoosiers are flipping champs. Let's go.
Playoffs are just starting. And now we're going to get a bye, and so you got to win 3 games. A lot of football to be played.
Here's an RPO, and it's an interception. And it's picked off by Devin Lloyd. Lloyd started right, cutting to his left. He's going to be chopped down around the 21-yard line. Ball between the hash marks for Daniel Jones. Lone back in the backfield is Jonathan Taylor. Jones on a counter, gives off to Taylor. Knifing, trying to find his way into the end zone. He's in, yes! Touchdown! Game is tied at 7. Lawrence goes out of the gun, ball in the right hash, backs the pass. He's looking, throws to the right side, and it's caught for a touchdown at the end zone to Jacoby Myers. A 14-yard pass. There's a flag on the play, and Daniel Jones is down. Daniel Jones can't even make it over to the sideline to be looked at.
He is seated on the turf, and he just slammed his helmet to the grass. He is now limping over to the Colts sideline.
Lawrence out of the gun, ball in the right hash. And he's going to give off right side to Etienne. Slashes inside the 30. He's got an avenue. He's going to go down the right sideline into the end zone for a touchdown untouched.
Daniel Jones has an Achilles, could be season ending. I don't have the full details on it. A lot of this stuff too, as you go through a season, you're going to go through some storms and some adversity, and you got to overcome those. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to fight like crazy and believe, and we know that we got a big one coming up on the road.
Good morning. It is cold outside. It is dark, and I'm not even talking about the weather right now. I'm talking about what it must be like over at West 56th after an unbelievably celebratory evening on Saturday where Indiana smacks down Ohio State and moves on to a bye in the college football playoffs, and the playoffs were announced yesterday, and we got all kinds of opinions and thoughts on that as well. But, man, where do we? Good morning, Kevin Bowen. I hope you're doing okay today. I'm impressed showing up in just a T-shirt today. It is cold outside. Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know, but I'm wearing layers upon layers over here. How are you doing this morning? I know there's a lot of mixed emotions going on through you right now. You speak for everybody. How's your brain and your heart working right now?
I said to Caleb, thank you for the opener here on this Monday morning. I said to Caleb when we got in studio, this show feels it feels a little odd to me in a way. I don't necessarily want to totally compare it to a show a few months back, but I was thinking on the commute in, we did a show the Monday morning after Tyrese Halliburton's game winner in Madison Square Garden. That same night, we had the passing of Jim Irsay, and that same day previously, you have to talk about it on air, we had the Penske, cheating scandal, if you want to call it that, over at IMS, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do we properly get to all of it? How do you rank these in, major sort of 701 significance, et cetera, throughout the 3-hour show? So, the more and more, obviously, the commute in, the more I thought to what Caleb led off with right there, and that is when that bracket popped up yesterday, and the #1 team in the college football playoff is the Indiana Hoosiers, it was yet another moment of awe. And I don't know if you felt this, Jeff, but I married into I would say a pretty big Indiana football family, as surprising as that might seem to some. And to watch their emotions play out Saturday night, to watch neighbors, friends, people I went to college with, it reminded me of Purdue making the Final Four a few years ago. It reminded me of the Pacers making it all the way to Game 7. You've got to dial it back a little bit to find that for the Colts, but it was that sort of moment that sports do offer. As cruel as we saw it play out for some fan bases yesterday, it also offers those magical moments. And so that's probably what I wanted to lead off with, is just Indiana football. And I said it to you after the Oregon game, Jeff. it's the greatest coaching job in college or professional sports, bar none. And I don't think that's hyperbolic. You're in the market, and that's just why you're saying
You
that.
even had Urban Meyer saying that on Fox Sports the other night.
I think it is the greatest coaching job in college or professional sports. And so just for the 30th time, I feel like I've done that last 2 years, just an unbelievable hat tip to Curt Signetti, and in particular, that IU defense.
Yeah, and
that defense is absolutely outstanding. I get it. Fernando Mendoza is going to lift up a trophy on Saturday night, and deservedly so. But that defense, it's just they're a bunch of animals out there, and they were absolutely outstanding on Saturday night.
To put it in perspective, and I know a lot of people may have heard this comparison already, I believe the stat was, Kevin, coming into that game, Ohio State had allowed a total of 6 sacks to Big Ten opponents the entire season. 6. Indiana had 5 in that game and harassed Julian Sayin constantly and repeatedly. And they had their quick moments here and there, but Indiana shut those moments down for the most part and just didn't let them get it going. And everybody will focus on the missed 25-yard field goal at the end for Ohio State, but also remind you that Indiana also missed a mid-range field goal in that one. But their defense was terrific. But also, you want to talk about cojones, Kevin. Cojones with the game on the line and less than a minute to go. Did Curt Signetti play it safe? Did that offense play it safe when they wanted to put the game away? What did they do? Let's go downfield for 25 or 30 yards to Becker and call it good on a beautiful throw and catch. Like, that was like the exclamation on the entire night, didn't you think?
Yeah, I guess I figured they would pass. I wasn't that surprised by it. I mean, you had the Heisman Trophy winner.
But that was not a safe pass.
Well, no, but, again, you got to go try and win it at that point. And, I guess you could point to very different coaching philosophies in the aggressiveness between Ryan Day and, some of the short yardage decision-making and kicking the field goal there late. I thought that was a huge break for Indiana. But I will have Charlie B from Tennessee stuck in my head for a long, long time because Gus Johnson uttered that phrase quite often. And the Becker story, I mean, roommates with the Mendoza brothers. He's just been absolutely incredible for them here over the final few weeks of the season with, you had the Elijah Surratt injury and then Omar Cooper goes out early in the game on Saturday night. I think that's a huge I thought it was a huge loss. It sounds like Cooper will be okay based off what Curt Signetti said. But, I mean, what a throw and what a catch. And Becker had one earlier in the second half of that game. So, just quite the scene. And again, it was just, it feels like that fan base, obviously the basketball program hasn't provided it, deserves that. And again, that was probably my grand takeaway from Saturday night. It's, over the last few weeks, few months, few years, we've had this for other fan bases, in our market, and the Indiana fan base deserved it. And now they might have another one out there in Pasadena coming up here in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I know there's some stuff about it in the newspaper this morning that you'll see when you get up and start reading that, but I think we all thought the same thing yesterday as well. Man, if it weren't for bad luck right now, the Colts wouldn't have any luck at all. When you start talking about not just the injuries that they've had and just a devastating injury for Daniel Jones yesterday, clearly, but it feels like for the Colts all year long, the injury bug has just hit all of their best key players at one point or another. Knock on wood, there's one or two that have escaped that. But, I mean, starting with, the injuries that kept a couple of guys out for 4 weeks. The crazy injury, not crazy, but the injury to DeForest Buckner. The injury to Sauce Gardner, just a game and a half after he gets here. Yesterday with Daniel Jones. I mean, if you put a rank of the top 5 probably most important Colts on the roster, 3 of the 5 have been hit hard, and you could probably make the case that 4 or 5 have been bit a little bit this year.
Yeah, I said to James late last week, because he was certainly on this boat, I was like, man, do you really believe in, like, Jacksonville being a curse? And he was like, yes, 1,000%. I was like, really? Wow. And it's funny, we were talking to some Colts as the weekend played on and some very prominent Colts, and they were like, I can't believe people, like, keep on bringing up the Jacksonville thing. Like, is that really a place where, like, things just go to die and it's a curse? Like, I mean, it's a new year. It's a new team every year. I mean, this Jaguars coach, it's a first-time head coach. And now I'm watching that game unfold. And honestly, when Daniel Jones threw the interception on the first play of the game, I was like, oh my gosh, James Boyd is right. And I'm so grateful he's not in studio on Monday for him to, hear me say that. But it feels that way. Like, I mean, from the Jones pick to obviously the injury, It does. I mean, it feels like Trevor Lawrence hasn't had a game like that all season long, and he had a game like that, and like the game was over. I thought the game was over by the time Jones got hurt. I was like, this is going exactly how all the other ones play out. Like 14-7 seems like 41-7 at that point.
Were you heartened
the
for a
game.
moment? Because after they fell behind 7-0 following the Daniel Jones interception, I thought they put together a very nice, creative scoring drive.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they obviously had the response, and then Jacksonville hits them very quickly after that. I'm just like, okay, this is how it's going to go. At some point, the Colts won't be able to play catch up, and then, of course, when he goes down, to expect Riley Leonard to do anything. And frankly, I didn't think anybody helped out Riley Leonard. I mean, Taylor fumbled right after that. I thought the defense had arguably their worst day of the season. Again, Jacksonville's offense is not doing that to other teams. So, it brings up all the questions now. Short term, long term, all of them. And I don't think any of the answers are easy. I don't think any of them are easy. And they got 4 weeks left. And right now you're outside of the playoffs with Houston winning in Kansas City last night.
Do we even start talking about college basketball right now, or we just wipe that all away as a December
Doesn't this
weekend?
feel like
and
a
move
weird
on?
Monday?
It's a bizarre Monday. So bizarre.
So you have IU football on top of freaking Everest. I guess like the Pacers won a road game, right? Is that our only other positive from the weekend?
If they could just play Chicago for the rest of the season, we'd be good.
Purdue, Indiana basketball, Butler basketball. Can I talk Notre Dame basketball? Huge one Friday night. That's what you want to talk about with my Fighting Irish, right? The Notre Dame basketball team. A great week last week.
For good
Micah
basketball
Shrewsbury.
notes, we have to go back almost 72 hours.
I said I would sacrifice a playoff berth for Notre Dame winning at TCU.
Well, you did.
Little did the sports gods wag their finger at me and say, we'll test that, young man.
I've got thoughts on that, too, as you know. A lot to talk about. Obviously, a mix of emotions. Everybody in the state, other than the real, true Purdue fans, fired up about India. By the way, I've been getting emails and notes from Purdue fans saying we're just way over the top with our coverage of IU football, by the way.
Well, I think if we go back to the Purdue run, I believe we had a Purdue-specific guest on every single day of their Final
That's when we
Four
got Indiana
appearance.
emails. That's how it works. All right, coming up in a moment, we will run through the weekend that was, and then we will get to the discussions. We'll take a lot of texts and phone calls this morning because there's so much I'm sure people have to get off their chests and want to talk about. 239-1070. You can either call us up or you can just get to us on the text line, same number. But it is a Monday. It's a crazy Monday, full of the joys, the lows, the highs, you name it, right here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, we'll start with the most recent news. The Indianapolis Colts losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday by a final score of 36-19, but that's almost inconsequential, Kevin Bowen, because Daniel Jones comes up limping badly and very frustrated in the second quarter of that game. It looks like a torn Achilles. We'll get some confirmation on that later. That's all the news coming out right now, but he seems to be done for the season. And where are the Colts now? On the outside looking in on the playoff picture, and all of a sudden they find themselves in third place in the AFC South. What are we looking for today? What happens now?
Well, yeah, obviously the Daniel Jones confirmation of a torn Achilles, and then it sounds ludicrous to say, but if you are wanting or hoping for the Colts to make the playoffs, you want the Eagles to win tonight. You want the Chargers. They actually have a difficult schedule the rest of the way. I sound like an idiot, honestly, saying that out loud, given this team has lost 4 or 5 and could be looking at Riley Leonard for the final 4 weeks of the season. So I guess one thing is just, do the Colts do anything else quarterback-wise? I mean, not that there's like a Flacco sitting there.
What's there to do right now?
I mean, there's not. I mean, the trade deadline's obviously gone. Is there anything? I assume it'll be Riley Leonard for the final 4 weeks, but, Brett Rippon's on their practice squad. Is that something you want to look at? I thought Leonard was okay, all things considered, yesterday. At Seattle coming up on Sunday, and the Seahawks are playing for the 1 seed out west.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about Riley Leonard, to your point, he looked okay. It's hard to evaluate in that situation, but he didn't certainly seem like he was just overwhelmed by the situation.
Now, and I thought Steichen had a really poor sequence right before half we can get to. I thought the Colts were somewhat still in the game after the Grover Stewart fumble. I thought that was a really poor sequence from him, again, in short yardage. But I'll repeat what I said to lead off the show. Zero help, I thought, for Riley Leonard. The Taylor fumble, the defense just horrific.
Yeah, and Houston Texans got a win over Kansas City last night on Sunday Night Football, 20-10. And we've been saying it, but we've seen it a couple weeks in a row now. At least folks really starting to pay attention. That defense is no joke, Kevin Bowen.
No joke. They've won 10 games with Mike McDonald, Jackson Smith, and Jigba's leading the league in receiving yards. So, yeah, I saw they're a 10-point underdog. Colts, Seahawks coming up Sunday. I think it's 4 o'clock, right? 4:05, 4:25, one of those.
And as Kevin alluded to, later on tonight, Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, the other AFC South game yesterday. Were you surprised to see the Titans put some offense together and hold off the Cleveland Browns 31-29 yesterday?
Boy, I'll be honest with you. I was not paying much attention to Titans-Browns.
Most of the world was.
I'll let you handle that one.
That's your NFL report right now. As far as college basketball, yesterday, Indiana State did beat Southern Indiana 77-55, but it was a tough day for both Indiana and Purdue on Saturday, Kevin Bowen. Where do you want to start? You want to start with Iowa State just coming in that second half up at Mackey Arena and just putting one on Purdue.
Yeah, teams do not walk into Mackey and do that. First time since 2019, Purdue's lost a non-conference home game. So, I thought Iowa State was good. I'd be obviously lying to you if I thought they would walk in there and dominate the game. I thought I was really disappointed in the start of the second half for Purdue. I thought first half wake-up call, you kind of regroup into halftime there. None of that. Iowa State just took it to another level there to start the second half. Trey Kaufman-Renn really struggled around the rim. Ugly from Purdue. Super rare to see them play like that again, especially inside of that arena. So now they'll shift gears here. Big Ten game coming up on Wednesday with Minnesota, and then they'll have Marquette and Auburn on the notable non-conference front to round out that slate.
81-58 was the final score in that game. And then downtown at the Fieldhouse, Louisville, a win over Indiana, 87-78. The first half of the Don Fisher doubleheader there. But what did you make of Darren DeVries' team against Louisville?
I thought it looked like two different levels of talent, frankly. I just thought Louisville had some high-level skill, 1 through 5, and Indiana just doesn't have that, really. And, if you look at this non-conference resume that IU starting to produce, it's lacking really anything. They'll get an opportunity Saturday against Kentucky. You talk about two teams right now that have had disappointing, I think, starts to the season. Kentucky would be probably atop that list there. But, you hit 11 threes, just could not guard. Shout out to Ryan Conwell. That had to mean a lot for him to come back to his hometown and deliver in the manner that he did. Every time Indiana made one of those kind of fake runs, you cut it to 8, you cut it to 10, and then Conwell hit another big shot there. So, I just thought the talent gap was quite evident there with Pat Kelsey's bunch in year 2 of him.
All right, let's move on to the college football playoff. Indiana's the number 1 ranked team in the nation after getting the Big Ten championship with a 13-10 victory over Ohio State on Saturday night. All of the playoff teams were announced yesterday. If you want to look at it, Indiana number 1, Ohio State flipped to number 2. The other 2 teams that will get a first-round bye, number 3, Georgia, and number 4, Texas Tech. I alluded to this last weekend. We didn't really have time to get into it. I understand how it works. I understand automatic berths. I get all that. But are we really going to live in a world where both JMU and Tulane are going to get in over a Notre Dame team that would be favored maybe by 3 touchdowns over both of them at this point in time? This isn't the NCAA basketball tournament where there's 68 teams, maybe even expanded to 72. It's not that where 1, maybe 2 guys can make all the difference in the world like a Seth Curry did with Davidson all those years ago. It doesn't work that way in football. It doesn't work that way. Right now, you could play Notre Dame and JMU 10 times, Notre Dame and Tulane 10 times. I get how the system works. I understand we need to change the system. They'd go 20-0 in those games, Kevin. I'm not even a huge Notre Dame fan. I just want to see the best teams play football right now. I'll tell you another team that didn't deserve to get in. You look at Alabama over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, they're not a very good football team right now. They're not. And so I'm just, as a sports fan, I'm not even a Notre Dame fan. This thing, they've screwed up the first ever edition of the 12 teams. They've screwed it up.
Well, yeah, again, it's 2 different arguments, obviously, from a James Madison point of view or automatic qualifying point of view with the ACC having such a poor season this year versus Notre Dame's at-large status. And that's where my gripe was, and I would agree with you. I think it's more of a gripe. I think you could have a gripe with both Alabama and Miami. I have more of a gripe with Alabama. I'll save it for a bigger segment to rant and rave and have people hate Notre Dame fans even more than they already do. I was when Duke won Saturday night, that's when the pit in the stomach really started to grow. I thought there was no chance they'd leave the ACC out empty-handed, and sure enough, they did not.
No, and we will talk about that later because I thought also the committee, the College Football Playoff Committee, which is largely determined by guys from the SEC and the Big Ten, I get all that. I thought they were sending Notre Dame a message too. See, you're going to go independent, go on your own, then you're going to roll the dice.
The Indiana draw, they will be out in the Rose Bowl, and this will be New Year's Day, a 4:00 kick on New Year's Day. They will get the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma. I think it's a very good draw for Indiana. The fact that you have Georgia, Ohio State, if you want to slot A&M in as a team that was ranked top 5 for so much this season, they're all on the other side of the bracket. If the seeds held, you would look at Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and I guess a rematch with Ohio State. If Indiana wins that quarterfinal matchup in the Rose Bowl, they will then play Friday, January 9th in the Peach Bowl. So that's in the Falcon Stadium there in Atlanta. It goes without saying how many alumni for Indiana are in that Atlanta area there. And then the national championship game would be in Miami.
Just to put a fine point on it right now, Oregon is a 20.5-point favorite over James Madison right now. Ole Miss, without a true head coach, is a 16.5-point favorite.
I'm totally good with one Cinderella, but to have 1/6 of your field be filled with that
is wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Also, NBA tonight, the Pacers, after a win on Friday night in Chicago, will be home tonight to take on the Sacramento Kings. That one will start at 7 o'clock. Airtime right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan, beginning at 6:30 at this point in time. Anything else that you wanted to throw in and sprinkle in before we move on here?
No. Again, Pacers got that first road win of the season here. Rick Carlisle should join us coming up tomorrow. No Domantas Sabonis for the Kings.
Won't get to see the former Pacer tonight. All right, coming up in a moment, we'll start to get to your feedback. Give us a call now, 239-1070. Caleb will happily answer that. He's in for Mark Dykton this morning. And you can also hit us up on the text line. If you don't want to stick around and wait on hold, just get your comments out there, and we'll talk about some of that. It is we're navigating a lot of emotions right now. Very fired up and excited about Indiana. Really bummed out about what's going on with the Indianapolis Colts, and confused once again about college football playoffs and the way they've decided to mate out those berths. We'll do it all next as we continue. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
into the end zone for a touchdown untouched.
So much going on for the Indianapolis Colts. They've now lost, 4 of their last 5? After starting the season 7-1, they were setting record. Well, they were on pace to set a lot of offensive records. They were just tearing things up. We knew that the schedule wasn't the toughest, but still in the NFL, Kevin, you start putting stats down. That's no joke right there. So they go all in and they trade 2 first-round draft picks and a wide receiver to the Jets for Sauce Gardner. He comes in, and within a game and a half, he has an injury that's going to keep him out for a while. And then, of course, yesterday, Daniel Jones goes down with what we fear and what seems to be and will be confirmed later on today probably as a torn Achilles, which we know is minimum a year before you get back. And where does this leave the Colts now? That's really what people are asking. It doesn't even feel like a lot of Colts fans are worried about playoffs this year, right here, right now. That is a concern, to be sure. But people are like, okay, but what now? Like, what do the Colts do now?
Yeah, it's easily the question that I've gotten the most in the last 24 hours of, okay, what do you do with Anthony Richardson? What do you do with Daniel Jones' contract? What does this mean for the futures of Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard? All of it. I mean, all of those topics now, Jeff, become front burner like no other. Richardson, you have a 5th-year team option that you have to make a decision on this offseason. By no means would his play or health indicate you would ever pick that up. All of a sudden, does it make you want to pick that up? All of these questions now get asked. As far as the final 4 weeks are concerned, I have not gotten the vibe that Anthony Richardson is close to returning at all. That has just been my general vibe throughout this. I think I've shared that. I think James has shared that.
That's a pretty serious injury.
On air. Yeah, you're talking about a guy that I think it's fair to say nearly lost his eye, frankly. And so, an orbital fracture, is what occurred in the locker room. We're now going 2 months without him practicing. He is doing some weight room work. But again, I have not gotten the vibe that he is going to be back anytime soon. So I would assume for the final 4 weeks that it is Riley Leonard, and then Brett Rippon is on the practice squad. He hasn't thrown a pass in an NFL game since 2023. Mm-hmm. So that's your little short-term kind of reality, and that obviously doesn't get into anything from a 2026 quarterback point of view. My very early gut reaction to it all is, okay, does Anthony Richardson just become your quarterback for 2026? Daniel Jones is likely out with the torn Achilles for next season, so Richardson is under contract for next year. The 5th-year option's for 27. So would you just roll with Richardson for 26? But then again, once that question is asked, you very quickly would say to the person asking that question, well, who's calling those shots?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Chris Ballard? Is it Shane Steichen? And then you just throw up your hands and say, hope that you're an IU football fan.
Real quick before we get to our first phone call, Don, in a second here, it's night and day between having middle of the season in rhythm defenses have an entire week or two to prepare for you as a quarterback. Based on what you saw from Riley Leonard in that Cincinnati preseason game, what you saw a little bit yesterday, do you roll with him right now and say, let's see what the kid can do?
Roll with
Riley Leonard?
As opposed to Rippon?
Just for the rest of the year, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably, I don't think Rippon all of a sudden is going to, be vastly different than Leonard. I did think, and I want to make sure we hit on this, because, I thought there was a sequence there late in the first half yesterday where I thought you were still in it. When you get into the rain game, weird bleep can happen. You saw some ball security issues on both teams. And so I thought there for a second, I'm like, okay, if you can get this to 1 score at half, you get the ball to start the third, can you put any game pressure? And at the very least, you make Trevor Lawrence hand off the ball in a safe manner for the final, couple quarters. And after that Grover Stewart fumble, when they had 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 back it up, and they did not use Leonard's, his legs, or just hand it off both times, that to me was just, I thought it was idiotic. Riley Leonard is not a pocket passer. That is not his game. His game is, if there is a strength to it, it is running. And so I thought we would see, and again, Shane's got a plan for this. You have to have a backup plan. Okay, if all of a sudden my quarterback gets hurt, here are the 24 plays.
Here's the package that goes in.
Plays,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would assume with Leonard, a lot of it should be leg-based. Look at his touchdown. It's what? It's him making a play with his legs. Look at the first third down. He converts to Alec Pierce. It's him making a play with his legs. That is his game. I mean, Notre Dame fans saw it all last year. College football fans saw it in the run to the national title game. So the fact that they threw it on 3rd and 1, I thought was greedy as hell in the rain. And then 4th and 1, you're back in the shotgun and Taylor gets blown up. And at that point, Jacksonville knows full well, if you just threw it on 3rd and 1, you are definitely going to be running it here on 4th and 1. And they sell out on Taylor, and boom. If Leonard keeps it there, I think there's an opportunity for him to pick it up. So I thought that sequence, Jacksonville then takes it down, 28-10. That to me was just egregious from Shane, and I thought your defense was awful yesterday. I mean, Jacksonville, I get that there's no Buckner, there's no Gardner. Jacksonville's missing their left tackle and their top pass catcher. And they, season high in points. Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked like that all year long. Just awful.
Yeah,
no sacks, no hits on Lawrence.
0.
31 pass attempts, not a single hit. The only time his jersey got dirty was because of the rain.
Does Kwity Paye still play for the Colts?
Just awful.
There's a guy that lines up with his number, but does he do anything?
Awful.
Honestly. And I will say one thing before I move on to Don, too. You go back to that 4th and 1. There is very little in all of the NFL that makes me cringe and that I hate more than going for short yardage out of the shotgun. It just drives me nuts. I know that these coaches, that if I put this guy in motion, now we can move this guy around and maybe we'll try to get some misdirection going on. You know how I feel like it's football. At some point, you just got to make a yard. And your guys can either do it or they can't sometimes. It just drives me nuts. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Don joins us, 239-1070. Good morning, Don. Welcome into the Fan Morning Show.
Morning. First of all, congratulations, Hoosiers. It was a long time waiting for us Hoosier fans, which turned me into a Notre Dame fan, which I don't get why they snubbed them or Alabama over Notre Dame. They haven't did nothing. Why are they kissing Alabama's ASS when they haven't done anything? I get sick of that kind of stuff. It's not right, and it's wrong, and hopefully the Colts will come out of this. I don't see Riley Leonard being that bad of a quarterback. He's still a rookie. I believe they can make a good quarterback out of him, and we're going to beat Jacksonville. We're a better team than them, our next showing. We just got to take care of the other 3 games, and I believe we still got hope. All right, guys, have a good day.
Thanks very much. I like Riley Leonard, but I don't like him as a starting quarterback in the NFL, certainly at this point, Kevin.
When am I allowed to rant about Notre Dame?
We'll do it now. It's on the table right this second.
Well, don't we have James Boyd coming up?
We got 2 minutes before we get to James.
Well, I'm going to need a lot longer than 2 minutes.
Okay, and we'll hold on to that.
Your favorite moment from Saturday night inside of Lucas Oil?
Probably just watching the elation of everybody when that field goal went left, and it's obvious you're now going to beat. As crazy as it sounds, you knew they were going to be one of the top 2 seeds going into the playoffs. That wasn't in question. To be able to finish off the conference schedule on top of your regular season schedule, though, and beat Ohio State. I think the elation that I felt from people in their living rooms when I was out the next day going over even to my mom. Look, it was the talk of the town at the retirement home, Kevin. It's all people wanted to talk about. That moment, it's almost hard to describe collectively what the Indiana fan base felt in that moment where that realization is, oh no, not only are we undefeated, but we just beat Ohio State. Yeah, we're going to the college football playoff, and we're going to win the thing too. As opposed to, man, just happy we got there. Can you believe we're in the college football playoff? It was, we just beat Ohio State, and now we're going to go win this thing too.
Yeah, it was one of those nights where, like, are we allowed to sleep inside of Lucas Oil Stadium? I thought, there's so many cool scenes. I thought when Aiden Fisher kind of took the mic there and led the entire place in the IU fight song. Like for IU fans, again, in 3 weeks, you might have a very similar scene in Pasadena, and maybe after that, it's Atlanta. Maybe after that, it's in Miami. But no matter what happens, even if they are to lose in the quarterfinal round, like that post-game moment, obviously, Fernando Mendoza, when he takes the mic, I feel like he's half like one of those preacher guys on Sunday that you see on the TV.
That's what I was going to say, man.
No, but he's meeting Mark Dykton's WWE personality. Like
Barstool Sports actually tweeted out, did we just watch a guy lose the Heisman Trophy in a post-game interview?
It's quite the scene anytime he's taking the mic, and I feel like he's speaking through my soul. But when Aiden Fisher, one of the JMU guys, all of a sudden breaks out into that, it just kind of shows you a little bit more of what Kurt Signetti has created here in 2 years. So, obviously the Mendoza to Becker throw, and sure, the missed kick. And, I want to make sure every time we talk about IU today, we mention what Brian Haynes has done with that defense. I mean, to stifle Ohio State
5 sacks.
that and just whip them up front. Timely plays when they needed to in the secondary. The Lewis Moore pick I thought was a huge tone setter early in that game. I think about Ohio State's only touchdown came off of the interception off that little screen. So just incredible job from the Indiana defense. And I think if we have watched IU all year long, so I think we know it. But still, for the whole maybe national scene to see their defense play out, unbelievable effort.
All right, he is gone, but certainly not forgotten today. The third member of our team here on the Fan Morning Show, James Boyd, getting ready to travel back from Jacksonville, where he was in attendance for that Colts game in the rain yesterday, joins us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. Good morning, James. We had talked about the fact that you truly believed in a curse for the Colts in Jacksonville, but I don't think you had that much of a curse going on when you said that, did you?
No, they're in trouble. Their season probably just ended yesterday because of the Achilles injury to Daniel Jones. So I know I'm here for all the jokes and Duval County curse, but they might actually not make the postseason.
James, how would you describe the locker room scene yesterday?
Very dejected. Probably one of the more depressing locker rooms I've been in quite some time. And not saying I've been around that long, but been around for 4 years now, and it hasn't felt like that. I think they all kind of knew in the moment that Daniel Jones went down, there goes our chance. Now, they did say, and credit to Jonathan Taylor, I thought he gave the best quote of the locker room, like, hey, I asked him, do you have to hold on to the rope? And he said, no, not just hold on. We got to scratch claw and yank the rope back to make sure our season can stay on the rails. But you're asking a fifth-round rookie to save your campaign, and I think there's just too much to ask of Riley Leonard. He played better than I thought he would, honestly, yesterday, but better defenses are coming, and I feel like these last 4 games, there are no lightweights, no gimmies, and they're going to be in serious trouble.
James, I gave some thoughts on Anthony Richardson in 2025 here a few minutes ago. What has been your view? Was Richardson there yesterday? I don't think they showed him on TV. Like, what's been your view of Anthony Richardson possibly putting on a Colts uniform again this season?
I'm actually not sure if he traveled yesterday. I did look for him down there on the sideline, but granted, I was also looking a lot for Daniel Jones through the binoculars, see what was going on with him. And as I tweeted out, I believe last week, and we talked about on the show previously, I've seen Anthony Richardson's face within the last 3 weeks. And it's not like a face that can play football anytime soon, in my opinion. So those who keep incessantly asking about him, I think it's just kind of naive to kind of go down that route. And keep in mind, usually even when you have guys to come off IR, they have a practice window they have to open. They haven't even done that, let alone clear them to play. So I think they're moving forward with the idea of Riley Leonard leading them down the last month of this season.
James Boyd joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline right now from Jacksonville. We know what it was like around here in Indianapolis yesterday. What was the locker room feel like after the game last night?
Yes, Kevin just asked me. Yeah, it was definitely depressing, and I felt like a lot of the guys were dejected in there. But at the same time, sending their condolences in a way. I'm not asking like, Daniel Jones is dead or anything, but definitely sending their prayers and, thoughts to a guy who has given everything to this team. And, the guy's already playing through a fractured fibula. Probably would have played through another one on the other leg had it been possible. It's just the fact that an Achilles injury is not going to obviously help you in the immediate future. And now you have questions about Daniel Jones, Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen. It makes the evaluation for Carly Gordon, the Colts principal owner, that much tougher, because how do you evaluate the quarterback position if he's going to miss the rest of this season most likely and part of next season? How do you evaluate Chris Ballard if he finally went all in, unlike in years past, and it backfires in this magnitude? How do you evaluate Shane Steichen, who's going into year 3 and might not make the playoffs? Most coaches who don't make the playoffs the first 2 years don't keep their jobs. So a lot at stake here.
James Boyd from The Athletic, of course. He is traveling back to Indy. He'll be back in studio with us coming up tomorrow. From afar, James, what was viewing Saturday night Indiana and Ohio State like for you?
Oh, it was great. Me and Nathan Brown, actually, shout out to Nathan Brown at Indy Star. We went out to watch it at some bar in Jacksonville. And check this out, guys. I found the coldest place in Jacksonville to watch this game. They had a bar inside of a ice skating rink, which was so freaking weird. But great setup, great screen. There were some Ohio State fans next to us, and they were actually pretty respectful. They gave a lot of credit to Indiana, and it was quite the night. I know I picked Ohio State to win, but boy, I should probably never pick against IU again. Trenches is what surprises me the most with this turnaround. They do not get bullied anymore down low, and they have the big dudes to compete and, the nitty and gritty. So great win, great performance from Fernando Mendoza and company. So excited to see what's next for him.
Yeah, certainly a crazy weekend of sports. I don't know if you were traveling or had a chance to watch any of the college basketball during the day, but that Purdue game was quite the letdown at Mackey, and I know you watch a lot of college basketball. Did you see that coming at Mackey?
No, not at all. One of the worst losses, I would think, probably ever, right, for a number one team in the nation. And so all I could think about was how much of a heel Tyrese Halliburton is and how much trash he must have talked to those fans because he likes to rattle a few people every now and then if he can.
Thanks, James. Always good to talk to you. Travel safe, buddy. We'll see you right here in the studio tomorrow.
I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, James.
Thanks very much. Interesting because, we were both talking about after the game, and I wanted to drill down on that because, I've been in many post-games argument. A lot of times it's what is not said, and it's just the general body language and face of guys at their locker where you really get a sense of what's really going on, Kevin.
Well, and, obviously when Jones goes down, I think the immediate comp for a lot of our audience is Halliburton's injury in Game 7. It's similar in a way, but not really. Like, nothing was going to happen to Rick Carlisle and Kevin Pritchard, of course. And sure, it sucks so much of the life out of this Pacer season as we've seen it play out. First off, it's ludicrous to compare Tyrese Halliburton as a player to Daniel Jones as a player. I think you start there. And also, it would be ludicrous to compare the resumes of Carlisle and Pritchard to Ballard and Steichen. So I would argue it almost adds more to it in what probably James and those witnessed down there in Jacksonville. And yeah, all those questions. I mean, James just alluded to it. All of these questions. And I think they are difficult. Like, I didn't think Ballard should have been back for a 9th year. But I also sit here and say, is it the best thing in the world to go out and get a new GM and say, hey, here you go. Oh, by the way, you don't have your 2 first-round picks for each of the next 2 years.
That person's starting off way behind the
That's
eight ball.
quite the way to start a rebuild.
Yeah.
But then again, part of me is like, wait, you're going to run this back and Ballard's going to get a 10th year? It's just and all of the domino effects off of it. So, and, I know hindsight could be super 2020 with the Sauce Gardner trade, and I think it's unfair to all of a sudden go back to that trade and be like, that trade should have never happened. I think the one element to the trade where you could probably be a little bit of like, man, there should have been more pause there. And I get there were time constraints in the trade. Literally, there was a trade deadline. You had to execute it by whatever it was, November 4th. But Daniel Jones has never proven himself over a full NFL season
to be a franchise quarterback.
Right. There's either poor play or there's it's a long list of injuries now for Daniel Jones in his career. So if you want to play the hindsight 2020 card, I think that's the one element to Jones, because by trading for Gardner, you are saying unquestionably, we have the franchise quarterback. He is not only a great quarterback, but he is durable and he has proven himself and he is our guy. That's the one element to looking back on that trade that you say, boy, Daniel Jones by Halloween deserve that? Yeah, I don't think that adds up.
Yeah, and then even the secondary that they do have right now, where you're talking about Mooney Ward and his struggles right now, but I also thought it was interesting. There were a couple of plays, not all of them, but there were a couple of plays where it looked like Jacksonville was targeting Kenny Moore the second yesterday too.
Yeah, I thought the defense was just awful. I mean, 0 sacks and 0 quarterback hits on Trevor Lawrence, and they're down there starting left tackle. I mean, J.J. Watt talked about how many moving parts they've had on their offensive line all year long. No Parker Washington. That was their leading pass catcher this season coming into the game. Jacoby Myers has been there, 3 weeks, and looked like he was, right on the same page, no questions asked. So that defensive effort was just, because it was already trending in an ugly direction. I mean, you gave up, 28 points in the first half to Jacksonville. I mean, even in Jacksonville starting 8-4, they're not starting 8-4 because of this offense.
And that wasn't the Daniel Jones injury fault there.
I mean, obviously you had the early pick that set up the first score, but still, there's 21 other points in that opening half there. They averaged 7 yards per play in the first half. That is just an awful, awful number there. So, again, helping Riley Leonard. Terrible from the Colts yesterday.
All right, coming up in a moment, we will take more of your phone calls. We'll get to the text line in depth for the first time today. Got a lot to talk about. What do you do next if you're the Indianapolis Colts? Where do you go? How do you move on now without some 5-year plan in the back of your mind? Because things have changed a lot in the last 72 hours, 48 hours. We'll do it next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
thought the Hoosiers would be here, but now the Hoosiers are flipping champs. Let's go!
Playoffs are just starting, and now we're going to get a bye, and so you got to win 3 games. A lot of football to be played.
Here's an RPO, and it's an interception. And it's picked off by Devin Lloyd. Lloyd started right, cutting to his left. He's going to be chopped down around the 21-yard line. Ball between the hash marks for Daniel Jones. Lone back in the backfield is Jonathan Taylor. Jones on a counter, gives off to Taylor. Knifing, trying to find his way into the end zone. He's in, yes! Touchdown! Game is tied at 7. Lawrence goes out of the gun, ball in the right hash, backs the pass. He's looking, throws to the right side, and it's caught for a touchdown to the end zone to Jacoby Myers. A 14-yard pass. There's a flag on the play, and Daniel Jones is down. Daniel Jones can't even make it over to the sideline to be looked at.
He is seated on the turf, and he just slammed his helmet to the grass. He is now limping over to the Colts sideline.
Lawrence out of the gun, ball in the right hash. And he's going to give off right side to Etienne. Slashes inside the 30. He's got an avenue. He's going to go down the right sideline into the end zone for a touchdown untouched.
Daniel Jones has an Achilles, could be season ending. I don't have the full details on it. A lot of this stuff too, as you go through a season, you're going to go through some storms and some adversity, and you got to overcome those. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to fight like crazy and believe, and we know that we got a big one coming up on the road.
The competitor in Shane Steichen feels that way, but man, you're starting to lose ammunition left and right, whether it's DeForest Buckner, Sauce Gardner, now your quarterback, Daniel Jones. And look, you talked about it and wrote about it, Kevin, when it first happened. When the Colts 3-4 weeks ago made the decision to give up 2 first-round draft picks and A.D. Mitchell to the New York Jets for Sauce Gardner, they were essentially saying, we're all in for the next several years here. We've got a quarterback. We've got a stud running back. We like our wide receiver core. We know we need some help on the defensive line, but we are going to have just a kick-ass secondary that's going to help everything out on defense. We're all in. Man, since then, Sauce Gardner out for an undetermined amount of time, and now Daniel Jones out for the rest of this season and probably most of next year, if not all of next year, and whether or not he's even the quarterback. Remember, he's on a 1-year deal. There's a lot going on for the Indianapolis Colts all of a sudden that they didn't even have to think about 48 hours ago.
That's certainly true. We did it in the 7 o'clock hour. I'll do it again here. I can't start with Colts, though. I got to go back to Saturday night and just that scene inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Caleb, thank you for that rejoiner. And hearing Don Fisher's voice, honestly. I was texting a little bit with Fish on Saturday morning. He got a kick out of the comments on Friday when we said, we should carry him by Pharaoh, like a Pharaoh from Gainbridge Fieldhouse over to Lucas Oil Stadium. And now he's, calling Indiana back in the Rose Bowl, which is just absolutely insane for the first time since 68. So, I think of this market as cruel as sports can be, and we've seen that certainly. You have had certain fan bases get moments that have led to tears, frankly, positive tears, happy tears over the last few years. Obviously, the Pacers, I think, created that this past summer, this past spring with really kind of a Hollywood run all the way until Game 7. A couple years ago when Purdue makes that Final Four, and for fans that were at that game in Detroit, and whether it is the Lance Jones 3 or the Zach Edey block, and to get to a Final Four for the first time in years, for Indiana fans, certainly they haven't had in basketball, and it's their football program that offers that on Saturday night. And that's what I was struck by, of just, so much of the day, the anticipation for Saturday night, and obviously the basketball game doesn't go well at all, but to have that in your state capital, to have it be Ohio State, to have all of a sudden the bracket pop up yesterday and the first team that Reese Davis mentions is Indiana. It's just, I have been at a loss so many Mondays in the Curt Signetti era of how to properly put it into context, and I once again am at a loss for it, and it's just beyond remarkable. It's the greatest coaching job, in my opinion, in college or pro sports. I'll repeat what I said in the 7 o'clock hour, and I don't think that is some hyperbolic, happen to just, be in market with that team. No, I think it's true. And again, that defense, like Fernando Mendoza will hoist the Heisman coming up Saturday night, and he made some big-time throws, and Charlie Becker made some big-time catches. Elijah Surratt made a huge play on 3rd and 8 there to, I guess, score the eventual game-winning touchdown. But their defense is just – that story is – that might be the most amazing element. Because Fernando Mendoza had a lot of hype as a transfer. There was a lot of appeal to wanting Fernando Mendoza. That defense is not littered with those types of portal additions on it. There's some JMU flavor to it. There's the 5'9" D'Angelo Pons to it. There's a guy from Navy that transferred, and yet they just dominated that game. And really, the only touchdown Ohio State scored was because of that interception. So, unbelievable job by Brian Haynes, Pat Kuntz, whole defensive staff, everybody.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch. And even yesterday, out and about, whether I was visiting my mom for most of the day or even later on when my boys and I went out, all people wanted to talk about was Indiana. And to your point, I think people are still pinching themselves. Like, they're used to Indiana basketball, even though it's been a long time, right? Last time they went to a Sweet 16 was the Tom Crean era. And before that, you got to go back to the one Mike Davis year. But nothing like this ever, Kevin. And, you grew up in this state. You know what it's like. Notre Dame, they're bummed they didn't get to go to the college football playoff. Like, it's almost a birthright expectation if you're playing well and have a good season. And I get that. But for Indiana to not just be in the college football playoff, but to be the consensus number one team in the country, and having knocked off the previous thought to be number one team in the country, I don't know that even if they continue to do this, I don't think you'll ever be able to replicate what this feeling is like right now, can you?
Well, who knows what conference championships are going to be moving forward. I guess let's just start there. So, to create that scene and to have that scene in your state capital against that opponent, of Ohio State's beating you how many years in a row, and how the game played out. Frankly, I thought, what's his name, Ohio State kicker, I thought he almost missed the first kick. The first kick was a chip shot. I thought he almost rifled
kind of had that
one
little curvy thing going to
off
it.
the left upright,
Yeah.
and then sure enough, the second one. And I just thought it was just some of the softest coaching from Ryan Day not to go for that.
Not my favorite guy, but okay.
What go for it. So you kicked a field goal just to have to wait and get another score later in the game?
Mm-hmm.
No, go. They had leaned on Indiana a little bit there in that second half, and it's like, okay, how many body blows? Indiana defense was hanging in there, but you are Ohio State, and you don't go for 4th and really inches. They had 2 of those in the second half, 3rd and 1s inside the 10-yard line, and you walk away with 0 points. And I thought Ohio State deserved Mendoza to Becker to ice the game. Like, by you being so cowardly in deciding to kick it there and miss it, you deserve the Heisman moment to occur. And again, Charlie B from Tennessee will be ringing in my ears for a long, long time. You can think what you want about Gus Johnson, but I thought every time he said that about Charlie Becker, pretty spot on there. What effort from him here over the final month and a half of the season. When injuries have occurred to Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr. leaves the game early on. Doesn't sound like it's too severe on that front, but for Becker to continue to step up for this team, that's part of building the college football program. Depth is key. Injuries happen. Can you do it? And Indiana has withstood some of that and did it on a grand stage Saturday night.
Kevin, I was also going to say, too, about the defense. I know Jeremiah Smith had a lot of yards, but D'Angelo Pons, like some of the red zone reps that he had on Jeremiah Smith, where he is just
on that 3rd and 1, he was on him
on an island sometimes, and I know they bracketed him a lot, but I thought D'Angelo Pons was the story too on that defensive side.
Yeah, he is another one, and when you look at his resume of the 5'9" frame and another guy that transferred up, and he missed, I think it was the Iowa game earlier in the year, so that aspect, what's the best aspect of the Indiana football team? It's their defense. I think more so than Fernando Mendoza, as crazy as that sounds. I think it is their defense that is their true calling card, and I think they sent quite a message to anyone they'll face here in the quarterfinal round, Alabama, Oklahoma, or semifinal round of Texas Tech or Oregon or whoever it's going to be, of driving on us consistently is no easy task. Look at Oregon. Oregon struggled to move it, and they put up huge points all year long. And then obviously look at Ohio State on Saturday night with Jeremiah Smith in there, and Carnell Tate's healthy, and Bo Jackson had some decent runs, and that defense is championship level.
One of the things I've said all along, as this season has unfolded, and you know how it is, Kevin, various radio stations or networks will call you every once in a while, hey, can you come on and talk for a few minutes about Indiana and what have you. And I keep telling people, this is a different football team. You talk about that defense, Kevin. They are even offensively along that offensive line. This is a physical football team. Like, they don't stand back from anybody. They will go head-to-head with you in the interior line. Offense, defense, doesn't matter. You add to that the skill players like Surratt, like Cooper, and I think people are starting to figure out they got some pretty good running backs too. But then you throw in what you've been talking about, that defense, which is not only physical, but they can cover you, and you talk about what they were able to do in the secondary. They were talking about what they were able to do, for the most part, just not letting Ohio State go on any big runs at any point in the game. And I also go back to something. I saw a great interview not too long ago. Kurt Signetti was on Dan Patrick. And Dan Patrick was like, could you have ever seen this coming, this path? And he goes, well, this is kind of how I got here. And he talked about, the lower divisions when he coached. And he did it there. And then he did it again. And then he did it at JMU. And when Indiana called, he thought to himself, all right, why can't we just do it there too? And that kind of goes back to when he was saying, Google me, I win. He goes, I didn't see why I wouldn't be able to build what we had built in previous stops, doing the same things that we did, finding the same kinds of players. And, we can all say, it's a completely different level right now. But Kurt Signetti can just flat out coach. You could make the case, Kevin, that he's the best coach in college football when you take a look at where he's done it, how he's done it at every single level, at every single position you could find yourself in. He's just gotten it done.
It goes back to conversation we've had before. He was the right type of coach at the right time. It wasn't just that he had a winning resume and they hired him. He was a no-nonsense, I'm going to look at people in this athletic department, in this fan base, and tell you, no, that's the old way. We're doing it my way. Enough of thinking like loser old Indiana football. We're not doing that anymore. This is how it is going to be. I've told the story before when we had him on at Colts training camp I guess it would have been just before his first year. I compared him to Will Smith and Hitch. Didn't really ring to Kurt Signetti necessarily, but it takes a little bit of we're going to think my way. I don't care if that's how Tom Allen, Kevin Wilson, et cetera, did it, or how old Indiana football has done it. It's going to be this way. And I think that was key. It's not just that he won, it's that he's going to reshape how you think. And not only for the players, but I think also for the athletic department and the fan base as well. It was huge. And one just last thing about their defense, it really, I think, hit me during the Illinois game. Because, fans of Indiana's football program, they've had a wideout on occasion. They've had a cornerback on occasion that's worthy of playing in the NFL. I mean, hell, Tracy Porter made one of the biggest plays in, anti-Colts history. But they've never looked like this in the trenches. Never. And that's the difference for me. It's that, skill talent in Indiana, I mean, they've put up points before. That's not like that outlandish of a thought. It's being a championship team up front, and they certainly are that.
Yeah, no question about that. Go to the text line at 239-1070. And Charles says, ooh, the possibility of an Indiana JMU semifinal. Good luck. It'd be a great story. Good luck to JMU on that is what I would say. But he does make a good point. Could you imagine, Kevin?
JMU would have to win, what, 2 games?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
They'd have to get
to
the
Indiana's
semifinals.
got Oklahoma, Alabama winner. Again, New Year's Day, 4 o'clock. In the Rose Bowl for planning purposes for fans out there. If they win that, they'd go to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. That's a Friday, January 9th.
JMU would have to beat Oregon and Texas Tech to make that happen. Suppose it could happen. I doubt it. A lot of people checking in on just how much fun this weekend has been, and you felt it. I don't know if you were out and about yesterday at all, but you could feel it. There's Indiana garb everywhere. There's shirts, there's jackets, there's hats, but you could just see people talking about that. everywhere you go.
Yeah, again, I've said it earlier in the show. It's how Purdue fans felt after the Elite Eight win over Tennessee a few years back. It's how Pacers fans felt probably after, Game 6 of the Knicks series is probably how it truly got there. Miles Turner on the mic saying Indiana in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That, to me, was kind of like Aiden Fisher grabbing the mic Saturday night and saying, let's cue up the fight song inside of Lucas Oil. So, it's a night where the security guards have to beg you to leave. There are many times as a sports fan where you probably want to leave. Saturday night wasn't one of those. You wanted to sleep inside of, get out some sleeping bags in the Bud Light zone because we're gonna be here for a while.
Man, I love that, Kevin. Like just camping up.
Why not?
Make some sausage and eggs in the morning,
Yeah, kegs and eggs to start it off on Sunday morning.
You notice Kevin went right to kegs, too.
No, there's got to be some kegs somewhere in that building.
Kegs.
Hell, the Colts fans are going to need to drown their sorrows.
To that point, Darren writes in, should be a Hoosiers day and week of enjoyment. I know you guys have to satiate a lot of different sports fans. I get it. The one thing I've been harping about on the Colts for over 2 years is that Shane needs to give up or have taken away his play calling. How is this not more major story? Focus on head coaching. A lot of people all over the place on the Colts and what they should do and how they should do it, but isn't part of the strength of Shane Steichen supposedly is play calling?
Yeah, honestly, right now, the gripe with Shane Steichen, you're 2-8 against Houston and Jacksonville the last 3 years. In the Shane Steichen era, you were 2-8 against the Texans and the Jaguars. The two teams that matter the most on your schedule. And look at the Texans and the Jaguars over the last 3 years. Jacksonville's changed coaches. Trevor Lawrence seems to be the one that they can't wait to get rid of. Houston changed offensive coordinators. C.J. Stroud's been in and out of the lineup. And yet, you're 2-8 against those two teams. And it's not like you're this, overwhelmingly touchdown, 10-point underdog every time you face them. And that's the reality of where you're at right now. So much of this is, go back to Chris Ballard's season-ending press conference. We need more tough guys. We don't win the games in December enough, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, the two biggest games of the season, Houston and Jacksonville, back-to-back weeks so far. Loss.
Chris says, who would have ever thought IU football would win the conference before basketball gets back to the Final Four or win the Big Ten basketball tournament? Incredible. You got Indiana football in the college football playoff before Indiana's even been back in the conference tournament.
Shout out to Tom Crean in the
to
one
win the
seed
conference tournament.
What was that, 2013?
Yep. It's been a while there. By the way, a lot of Colts headlines coming in. We'll get to those a little bit later on. So I know Mark is not here today. If you want to send those on the text line, 239-1070, we'll get to those a little bit later on today. In the meantime, we got a lot to talk about. Caleb, let's check this thing down right now.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
As expected, the Indiana Hoosiers are the number one seed in the 2025 college football playoff after a 13-10 win in the Big Ten Conference Championship game against Ohio State in downtown Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday night. I would imagine there are a lot of people who couldn't even get to sleep till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, Kevin. Just so fired up.
Yeah, it was quite the scene there post-game, to say the least there. I think, again, happening in your state capital, happening inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. I remember a few years back, Indiana played Louisville at Lucas Oil in a regular season game. And I remember Mark and I chatting during the break being like, dude, I had no idea that football game was even going on. Like, here is IU football playing in the NFL stadium in the state capital, and I didn't even know what was going on. And then you have a scene like Saturday night of Taylor Swift like mania for tickets, and then it plays out in the manner that it did.
Man. So, one big snub in the college football playoff selection, Notre Dame on the outside looking in, and they'll talk about the head-to-head loss to Miami. That's fine, but I think you and I are both more concerned about a couple of other things, chief among them 3-loss Alabama, who hasn't looked good in 5 weeks, getting in no matter what after their loss in the SEC championship game where they were just boat raced by Georgia Tech, or by Georgia, not Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
Georgia.
I'm going to give some thoughts on the other side on it.
All right, we'll let you do that at that point in time, and we'll break all of that bracket down. Meanwhile, in the NFL yesterday, we've also been talking about the fact that the Colts were 36-19 losers in Jacksonville. They still haven't won there since 2014, but more than that, much more than that, Daniel Jones goes down with what looks like an Achilles tear in his right leg. We'll get confirmation on that a little bit later on today. But where do they go now? What do the Colts do now? I know for the immediate, it's probably Riley Leonard, maybe Brett Rippon, but where does this team go? You can't really count on Daniel Jones, to be healthy next year. But what is Daniel Jones? We had all those questions before this happened. What do you do now if you're the Indianapolis Colts? What's the future look like?
Yeah, a million questions with answers that are difficult and not ideal at all. Yeah, it's just it's a really, really sour time to be a Colts fan. I wish I could say it in a different light, but that's the reality of where you're at if indeed this season continues to go the way it is going. I guess for those holding to any hope, because the thing about it, Jeff, it's not like you can tank. What are you tanking for? Like, people want the Pacers to tank. Well, the Pacers have the top 5 pick potentially waiting for them. The Colts have the, 45th pick? I don't know. I mean, they don't have their first rounder, so wherever their second round pick is going to be. So, yeah, it's just it's a kick in the you-know-what region.
Also, the Houston Texans win again last night on Sunday Night Football. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs by a score of 20-10. Jacksonville, of course, with the head-to-head win over the Colts, remains in first place in the AFC South. And with that win, the Texans move into second place in the AFC South. And later on tonight, Monday Night Football, Philadelphia Eagles take on the Los Angeles Chargers. All of a sudden, there's a rooting interest there for Colts fans.
Yeah, so if you are holding out for that playoff hope, I would say the Chargers have one of the most difficult schedules the rest of the way. They are currently 8-4, so a loss tonight, they're 8-5. If the Colts have the same record as the Chargers and it's just those two teams, the Colts would get in based off their head-to-head. But, I mean, right now, are you betting on the Colts to win another game the rest of the season?
It's going to be tough. You look at that schedule right now, and it doesn't get any easier. We talked about it, but Jacksonville was, you're going to play them twice. You've already lost the first one. Now you play Seattle. So you play San Francisco, Jacksonville again, and Houston. It is. We've always known this is going to be a tough one. Now you're going to be playing with one hand tied behind your back.
Well, and Seahawks and 49ers the next 2 weeks, they're still going for the 1 seed and trying to get a home game. I mean, the NFC West is probably the best division of football this season. So, yeah, just a brutal schedule.
All right, NBA later on tonight. Fieldhouse will be the scene of the Indiana Pacers taking on the Sacramento Kings, but no Domantas Sabonis in the building, or at least not on the court tonight, Kevin.
Yeah, Kings have been pretty bad this season. Shout out to the Pacers. Got their first road win of the year on Friday night. Pascal Siakam, great. Benedict Mather. How about the story of Ethan Thompson? Didn't we all go to school with a guy named Ethan Thompson?
All I know is I look up and the guy's making shots all over the place.
Making shots. I'm hoping Rick Carlisle will share this story with us, but it sounded like all of a sudden they realized Ben Shepherd was going to be out. Ethan Thompson just joined the team. He was playing with some of their developmental guys, and Carlisle called over to the United Center. This is Friday afternoon. It was like, hey, get Ethan Thompson off the floor. We need him tonight to play for the Pacers. Not only did he play, he started the second half and played really well, I thought. So just, the Pacers have had a couple of these stories this season. But, first road win, Kings, and then they really have a lot of practice time awaiting the next 2 weeks. So if they're ever going to get this back on track, Aaron Nesmith's return potentially by the end of this month, then, maybe it'll happen.
All right, also college basketball yesterday. One game, Indiana State beat Southern Indiana 77-55. And, of course, it was a tough one on Saturday at Mackey Arena, a 23-point loss for the Purdue Boilermakers at home against Iowa State. Iowa State's a good team. I wouldn't have been shocked if they'd have won that game, but not the way that they did win it, Kevin Bowen.
Yeah, you don't see Purdue get absolutely run out of their own building in the manner that they did on Saturday. Trey Kaufman-Renn really struggled in the first half there. Yes, I do think Iowa State is legit, but still. I was most disappointed in the start to the second half. I thought the first half would be a wake-up call for Matt Painter's bunch, but first non-conference home loss since 2019.
Season's over in Division III for DePaul. They lose to Wheaton 49-24. Anything else you want to throw in?
Yeah, that was a rough loss for Butler, too, at home on Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't ignore all of it there. I mean, Boise State, from a resume standpoint, that hurt what Butler has built up here. So they'll have a Northwestern upcoming. They'll start their Big East play here. I want to say it's this week. And then we'll get that Indy Classic a week from Saturday. So that'll be Purdue and Auburn, Butler and Northwestern there. And shout out to the Notre Dame basketball team. Jalen Harrelson, the 5-star, looking every bit like it. Marcus Burton leaves early at TCU Friday night. I said it to you guys on Friday. I would take a Notre Dame out of the playoffs for the basketball team to win at TCU. And the sports gods literally said, "Are you sure about that?"
There may be some revisionist history going on there.
What's
Caleb?
the percentage of Notre Dame basketball football fans that are like you? Because I don't think there's many that would say that. Respect to you, Kevin.
I think Ryan Bowen's the only other one I've ever met in my life. What a great win at TCU. A great week for Notre Dame basketball last week. Jalen Harrelson, outstanding. Hits the shot to send it into overtime. Cole Serta hitting threes from all over the state of Texas. Let's go.
Man.
Let's go. It's basketball season in South Bend, baby.
There will be a basketball game tomorrow night. Big Ten, Indiana, hosting Penn State at 8:30 tomorrow night. There you go, Kevin. That's what's going on. Let him rest on that one. He said what he had to say. He's taking a drink of water.
He's got to get ready to give his thoughts on the Notre Dame football team.
Yeah,
now.
I do.
So
We've been promising
prepared.
that for an hour. I'm going to let you go. You might want to take another sip of that water because I've seen you worked up out in the coffee hall, too. We'll do it all next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
17-yard pick for a TD. And Indiana's back on top.
Indiana would stay on top after a late missed field goal by Ohio State and just unbelievable defensive play throughout the game. Indiana goes on to win the Big Ten championship 13-10. They are the number 1 seed. Let's say that again, Kevin Bowen. They are the number 1 seed in the college football playoff in 2025.
Waffle House, right?
Yeah, open 24/7, right?
Waffle House, what they call Elijah Surratt. 50-50 is 80-20 when you throw it to him. That play looks so much like the Oregon play from earlier this season. 3rd and 8, saw the Ohio State corners shift onto Surratt right before the start of that play. Did not matter. Back shoulder, Surratt making that play, looking back like his healthy self there.
All right, so they are the number 1 seed in the college football playoffs, which were announced yesterday just after noon. The top 4 seeds that'll get a bye: Indiana, Ohio State is number 2, Georgia 3, Texas Tech 4. I keep looking up and down, even this morning, knowing what I know, and I see JMU in, I see Tulane in, and I get how they got in. I don't like the setup, but that's how it works, whatever. But then I see 3-loss Alabama in, who's lost 2 of their last 4 games, lost by 3 touchdowns to Georgia in the conference championship. And if you want to go all the way back to the beginning of the year, which the committee didn't have a problem going back and looking at the Miami-Notre Dame game to see what they saw, in the first game of the season, Florida State was a 2-touchdown winner over Alabama. Other than name recognition and the fact that there's a heavy, heavy SEC bias on these things, how the heck is Alabama in over Notre Dame at this point in time?
Jeff, what is the committee's job?
To get the 12 best teams into this football playoff under the criteria they set, which includes JMU and Tulane and their paths to get in. Fine, whatever. I don't agree with it, but outside of that, it's to find the best football teams and rank them in order. You cannot tell me that Notre Dame, who, by the way, went from number 9 in their own rankings to all of a sudden they went 1 spot behind Alabama before the conference championship games, didn't play a conference championship game, while Alabama got beat by 3 touchdowns, and then goes from being number 9 in their rankings to out altogether.
Yeah, I knew Notre Dame was screwed a few weeks back when the committee chair on live television did the 6-7 thing.
That's his legacy, by the way.
As soon as I saw him do that, I said, we are literally bleeped. There is no chance in hell this thing is going to run smoothly here over the next few weeks. In the history of the college football playoff, which again expands back over a decade, we've obviously had the 14 playoff before that. Alabama is the only team to lose on conference championship week and not move back. Notre Dame, the only team in that top 25 poll yesterday to have not played this weekend and move back. Alabama, to me, is the bigger gripe. 2 weeks ago, you had Notre Dame ranked higher than Alabama. What's happened since then? Okay, Notre Dame went on the road, won by 30 over an ACC team in Stanford. Alabama, over the last 2 weeks, you just brought up what they did in the SEC championship game. They had negative rushing yards, by the way, in the SEC championship game. Negative rushing yards.
And their quarterback was awful
in the game. Too. The week before that, they beat Auburn, who had 1 SEC win. That 1 SEC win was over an Arkansas team who happened to be the committee chair's team. Well, the committee chair, the AD for Arkansas, had to all of a sudden fire his head coach this season. Which game was that after? When Notre Dame went to Arkansas and won by 40 earlier this season. So Alabama, in 2 weeks, they beat 1 SEC win, Auburn. And if anybody watched that game, they watched Auburn have 7-8 drops in that game. Then they go to the SEC championship game. They get absolutely dog-walked out of the Georgia Dome, just get rolled. And again, negative rushing yards for the game. And yet, in the first time in 11 years, we have a team lose on championship weekend and not drop in the rankings.
At all.
That makes absolutely zero sense to me. We had the committee chair last night. Again, Hunter Yurachek, I believe is his name, the Arkansas AD.
That's it.
He is bringing up some of Alabama's wins from earlier this season with teams that were previously ranked in the top 25. Since when is that part of the criteria? Because Notre Dame has several wins this season where those teams were ranked at the time And then they fell out of the rankings, largely due to Notre Dame and those teams beating them. So that made zero sense for me. And I still have the Miami gripe. When the polls were debuted, whatever it was, a month ago, Notre Dame was 8 spots ahead of Miami. 8 spots. In that time, Notre Dame did this. They won by 39 over a 9-win team. The next week, they go on the road to play an 8-win ACC team. They win by 22. The next week, they play another ACC team. They win by 63 points. And then that last game of the season, like I just mentioned, they win by 30 over another ACC team on the road. So in 4 weeks, Notre Dame, 8-spot lead on Miami. They win by 39 over a 9-win team, 22 on the road over an 8-win team, 63 over another ACC team, and then 30 over another ACC team on the road. 4 wins, 2 over former top 25 teams by 38 points per game. And that 8-spot lead turns into a loss. It becomes a 9-spot difference with Miami jumping them in the final poll. It make no sense to me whatsoever on how Alabama or Miami, based off the rankings that we have seen with the committee over the last month, how it plays out in that manner. When Duke won Saturday night, I thought Notre Dame was out because I thought to myself, there's no way they're going to leave the ACC fully out. And for those that weren't totally following, Duke at whatever they were, 7-5, were not going to be ranked higher than James Madison. So James Madison was going to get the last automatic berth, which meant that because the ACC is too dumb to have Miami in their conference championship game, which they should have had in the first place.
Terrible tie-breaking rules.
If the ACC puts Miami in their conference title game based off the tie-breaking rules, which should be on the selection committee's rankings, then Miami theoretically wins Saturday night. They get the automatic berth. And now we have Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame all in the playoff.
Yeah.
Which is how it should be.
They screwed the whole thing up, but I also think there's an element of we know that this committee is largely influenced by the SEC and certainly to an extent by the Big Ten. There's no question about that. And I know for a fact that behind the scenes, because I've talked to some of these people over the years, these conferences do not like the fact that Notre Dame has been independent. They have their own network deal. They don't have to share any of their basketball tournament revenues, any of their TV revenues with any of the other teams. It's long been a source of consternation from conferences like the SEC. They couldn't wait behind those closed doors to have an excuse to say, "Oh, sorry, you're not going to take any of our money. You're not going to share in any of our stuff. You don't want to be a part of a conference and share your stuff? Well, this is going to be part of that consequence." I don't care what anybody says. I'm not the biggest conspiracy theory guy in the world. There is no way that didn't play a large part in why Notre Dame, to your point, Kevin, there is no logical way for them to have dropped in the rankings the way they did just based on what you outlined right there, other than the fact that we don't have to share with you, and this is how we're going to justify it. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing in the future, why don't you hurry up and go ahead and try to join a conference where we're tired of sharing our money with you, Mr. Independent.
Now, again, I firmly believe Notre Dame should have been in. I've got gripe, like I just laid out, over both Bama and Miami. But I will repeat what I said late last week. When you are 10-2, you're not bulletproof. And Notre Dame lost to Miami and Texas A&M. And part of Notre Dame not being in a conference, I don't necessarily think this means they should join a conference, let me be clear. But part of not being in a conference means the start of your season will be front-loaded. You'll have Miami and Texas A&M out of the gate. So when you do, and you're starting a freshman quarterback, and you're bringing in a new defensive coordinator, be wary. Because if those games don't go your way as you're easing into the season, it might come back to bite you. And that is the reality of where they're at from a schedule. They obviously won at Texas A&M a couple years ago to start the season. That, I do think, is a very real factor that Notre Dame has got to live with, in that more of these teams are not going to want to play you in October and November and interrupt their conference schedule. So that means August and September is going to matter more for you. And if you watch the Miami and Texas A&M game, Notre Dame had growing pains. They didn't trust C.J. Carr in the Miami game. Their defense looked awful against Texas A&M. Now, they lost by 4 points total. They easily could have won both of those games, but that is the reality of where Notre Dame is at right now. Having said that, I thought that committee chair is an absolute jackass.
Moron.
he's kind of just a meat shield for the whole process. I mean, he is the face of it all, and he doesn't help himself by the comments he says, but I think the larger problem, Kevin, is the other people in that room too. Everybody's abiding by this process that is obviously flawed, and that's just the one guy that gets to go on ESPN and answer good questions from Reese Davis and good pointed questions, and he looks terrible when he answers those questions.
Again, the goal is to get the best, let's call it whatever, 10 teams. If you want to, group of 5, put them to the. I'm fine with having one Cinderella in the 12-team field. By computer test, by eye test, Notre Dame is easily one of the 10 best. Jeff, on Sunday morning, if you looked at the national championship odds, Notre Dame was 4th on that list. You ask any of these teams that made the field, they don't want to see Notre Dame. Yet you leave them out?
You're not getting an argument from me. I'm going to let it sit right there.
Are you okay with them leaving or withdrawing from the bowl game?
Yeah, I'm not ready for that one yet. Maybe sometime in the 9 o'clock hour we can.
That really goes back to what I was talking about. That's Notre Dame telling the folks at ESPN who are in bed with the guys from the SEC and everybody else for bowl games. Well, you're not going to get us to profit off it. Here's the other thing about bowl games. Schools don't make money from most bowl games.
Yeah, Caleb, I don't love it, but I also think it's getting a tad overblown in this 2025 era of bowls. I mean, Notre Dame's played in 2 bowls under Marcus Freeman when they didn't make the playoffs. It's not like Notre Dame annually decides, hey, we're not going to play in the bowl game because to sum up what Notre Dame football has had to deal with in a bowl game recently, Sam Hartman decided to opt out of a bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
When Sam Hartman, future 7th round NFL draft pick, is opting out of a bowl game, we have issues with bowls in the year of 2025.
Big 12 just had to fine Iowa State and Kansas State because they decided to not take invitations to bowl games. Iowa State saying, not only do we have a bunch of players hurt, but we don't have a head coach right now either. Yeah, bowl games aren't what they used to be. Coming up in a moment, we'll take some of your feedback again on the text line and the fan call-in line. 239-1070 is the number. We'll do it as we continue on a Monday morning.
Off to Taylor, knifing, trying to find his way into the end zone. He's in, yes! Touchdown!
Good morning and welcome into the Fan Morning Show. Lots of celebration for IU, lots of heartbreak for Matt Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts right now, along with Kevin Bowen. I'm Jeff Rickard, James Boyd traveling back from Jacksonville right now. Let's go to the phone lines at 239-1070 and let people have some thoughts and saying of their own as we've been talking about this stuff all morning long. We'll start with Jeff at 239-1070. Good morning, Jeff. Hope you're having a great Monday. What is on your mind, sir?
It is a great Monday. Just a few points on the IU game Saturday night. And my voice is still a little raspy. Sorry about that.
Well earned.
Well earned. To see that place, I think 80% IU fans against Ohio State was incredible. Been there several times, and it's usually a very pro OSU crowd, so that was fantastic. Shout out to the coaching staff and the continuity of that coaching staff, because I think people are asking, how is this possible that Signetti's done this in 2 years? And really, I think it's a 10-year build. And shout out to him for understanding that continuity in that coaching staff is critical. Compare that to what happened with Tom Allen when he lost a couple of good coordinators. And thirdly, I was confident in this team in August, put a little bet down for IU, $35 to win the Big Ten championship game. And I'm going to use that $1,200 payout to go to Pasadena. So,
all right,
pretty damn good weekend.
That's a good deal. Get on the Hoosiers early. You're getting it back now. Your dad did something similar with the Colts, right, Caleb?
Thank you, Jeff, for the call.
Yeah, that's correct. He just sold the 49er Monday night tickets for the Colts, and now that's
before the game, right?
Before the game, and now those ticket prices will probably drop in the next couple weeks. So,
his thought was he was going to put that money into playoff tickets, right?
And now I guess he just has a couple extra dollar bills for the pocket. So,
and again, for IU fans, and Jeff, thank you. You know, that sort of sentiment from Saturday night, I shared with you at the start of the show. I married into I'd say a pretty big IU football family, and my sister-in-law was at the game, my brother-in-law was at the game, my father-in-law was at the game, and just to hear them, share those memories, it was it was just a reminder of, as cruel as yesterday was for a Colt fan or a Notre Dame fan, or for Saturday for a Purdue fan. There are those moments, and sometimes you feel like they're never going to occur, but what a scene. And then, as Jeff said, Pasadena, January 1st, 4 o'clock, IU will play Oklahoma or Alabama. We know that. And then if they move on, it would be Atlanta for the Peach Bowl that next Friday. I want to say it's January 9th. If seeds hold, you would face Texas Tech, potentially a rematch with Oregon. Oregon's the 5 there. And then the national championship game is Monday, January 20th. That is in Miami. So, honestly, it's a long flight out there to California, but after that, Atlanta, Miami, we got a lot of directs to those various airports.
Just get all your money for Christmas. Just go see all of them.
Well, easier said than done, but yes.
No, it's much easier said than done. But we see people do crazier things, man. Mortgage the house. Don't do that. Don't mortgage your house for this stuff. Let's go one more quick phone call before we break. Lewis wants to talk Colts this morning. Lewis, what's on your mind?
Yes. I don't think a lot of people understand how bad a situation the Colts are in. I mean, we gave up 2 first-draft picks for Sauce Gardner, and looks like we're not going to go to the playoffs. And I don't think even if Carly Ursay wanted to replace Chris Ballard, I know if I'm an executive, I wouldn't want to come into this crap show. I mean, you don't have 2 first-round draft picks. You don't know who your quarterback is going to be. And to make it worse, you have money tied up in positions that really aren't skill positions, like in the offensive line, the linebackers. That's a terrible situation. We're looking at least about a 4 to 5 year rebuild just to get underneath the mess that Ballard created.
Thanks for the phone call. We've talked about that earlier. We'll address some of that more on the other side as well. And I'll start to talk to Kevin about what do the various paths forward look like for this team, both in the immediate and in the long term. We'll do it as we continue here on a Monday morning. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Great grab.
There's a Hoosier down already.
Fernando Mendoza is on the ground.
I did not see it.
So Fernando gets decked on the first play of the ball game. Now he steps up.
He's going to be all right.
And Mendoza takes the snap, wants to throw it, fires it down the field. It's for Elijah Serrani, makes the catch. Touchdown! It'll be a 28-yard field goal. Here's the snap. Fielding kicks the ball. It is wide! It is wide! Wide to the left! He missed it! Indiana wins! Indiana has beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes, the #1 team in the country!
Whoever thought the Hoosiers would be here, but now the Hoosiers are flipping champs. Let's go!
Playoffs are just starting. And now we're going to get a bye, and so you got to win 3 games. A lot of football to be played.
Here's an RPO, and it's an interception. And it's picked off by Devin Lloyd. Lloyd started right, cutting to his left. He's going to be chopped down around the 21-yard line. Ball between the hash marks for Daniel Jones. Lone back in the backfield is Jonathan Taylor. Jones on a counter, gives off to Taylor. Knifing, trying to find his way into the end zone. He's in, yes! Touchdown! Game is tied at 7. Lawrence goes out of the gun, ball in the right hash, backs the pass. He's looking, throws to the right side, and it's caught for a touchdown in the end zone to Jacoby Myers. A 14-yard pass. There's a flag on the play, and Daniel Jones is down. Daniel Jones can't even make it over to the sideline to be looked at.
He is seated on the turf, and he just slammed his helmet to the grass. He is now limping over to the Colts sideline.
Lawrence out of the gun, ball in the right hash. And he's going to give off right side to Etienne. Slashes inside the 30. He's got an avenue. He's going to go down the right sideline into the end zone for a touchdown untouched.
Daniel Jones has an Achilles, could be season ending. I don't have the full details on it. A lot of this stuff too, as you go through a season, you're going to go through some storms and some adversity, and you got to overcome those. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to fight like crazy and believe, and we know that we got a big one coming up on the road.
Very complicated. Kevin Bowen, the highs, the lows, it's what we, I suppose, love about sports. But, man, as high as we saw that stadium on Saturday night at Lucas Oil with Indiana, Colts fans feeling pretty low. And there's a great cross-section of Indiana University fans and Colts fans, and they probably didn't know what to do with themselves after yesterday except compartmentalize. That's all you can do is compartmentalize at this point in time.
Avril Lavigne, Complicated. Caleb, excellent there. I feel like I'm watching an episode of The Hills from back in my high school days, hearing that song. You know, when Mendoza went down, and boy, that was quite the clip you played there early on. For a moment there, I'm like, there literally can't be nice things at all. I mean, can you imagine if, like, Fernando Mendoza had been hurt bad on that hit by the way, Caden Curry from Center Grove played a great game for Ohio State there, but can you imagine if we had that and, Ohio State would have won that game. But nonetheless, Mendoza pops up, and the rest is history. A night to remember inside of Lucas Oil Stadium for Indiana fans, just the scene. Aiden Fisher queuing up the crowd in the fight song, that's probably a memory that I'll always have in watching that. I can only imagine what it was like for people, that were in the building witnessing that. And, like I've said throughout the show, Jeff, defense. The Indiana defense is championship level. And that is the aspect of this team that stands out the most. I know that Fernando Mendoza will lift the Heisman Trophy on Saturday, and he made a huge throw and catch Charlie Becker along with the one earlier in the second half to him to ice that game. But the Indiana defense, and particularly that defensive line, has really been the unit all year long. Dante Moore hadn't been sacked all season long. First play of the Oregon game, sack. You go back to the Illinois game. Earlier this season when, I forget what the final number was, 7, 8, it might have even been more than that, sacks that they had, and then what they did to Ohio State's offense on Saturday night. You think about it, the only touchdown Ohio State scored was because of that interception. Put them into great field position there. So that is what is the thing I probably hold in the highest regard about this Indiana team. Again, the Kurt Signetti coaching job is right up there with any ever. But that defense, it is championship worthy.
It is championship worthy, and one of the things I've liked about this team all year long is how physical they could be, and they've shown that defensively all the time. But they've also been able to be a physical football team at times along the offensive line. Their running game has gone underrated at some point in time because you have these amazing, talented receivers in Surratt and Cooper and Becker, and they've had a nice running game. It is, and you don't say this often about any team, Kevin. This Indiana team is a really complete football team, wouldn't you say? It's a really complete team.
They really have great balance. Even
the special teams.
I've always thought their run game also is something that, provides the offense, again, really, really solid 1-2 punch there. Yeah, they are. I mean, what is their weakness? It's really hard to say. I know at times Kurt Signetti's mentioned that he feels like, maybe they're susceptible to the occasional big play, but, it's not like Ohio State hit on that too much on Saturday. Yeah, you had the rare field goal miss from them. And again, I thought Ryan Day was so cowardly in kicking that field goal there at the end. I thought he deserved exactly what he got. I think as soon as you make that decision, A, you miss the kick, and then B, Mendoza to Becker to ice the game. Like, that to me is just peak coaching softness, I guess is the word that's popping into my head. And you deserved exactly what you got from there. But again, credit to Indiana for putting themselves in a position to take advantage of that, keeping Ohio State out of the end zone for so much of Saturday night and pitching a shutout in, one of the biggest moments that program has ever had.
So they're the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, which means they'll get a bye the first week, and then they will play whomever. Well, we'll know the winner of a game here in a second, but my point is they next play at the Rose Bowl, Kevin. 4 o'clock, is it New Year's Day?
Correct, New Year's Day. Yep.
Mm-hmm. As always, that's when the Rose Bowl. That's one thing I like about the Rose Bowl. It's either going to be a 3:30 or 4 o'clock start on New Year's Day, regardless of what's going on.
Yeah, you have one quarterfinal game on New Year's Eve. That will not be Indiana's. Indiana will be one of the 3. I think it's 3 games on New Year's Day. They'll know their opponent coming up here. What is it, a week from Friday? I think Alabama-Oklahoma's the first.
Yeah, that's the Friday night game.
That's the Friday night game.
That's a rematch game. Oklahoma won by 2 at Alabama earlier this year.
This one's in Norman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because those first round games are all going to be home games. So Oregon will be playing at home against JMU, Oklahoma at home against Alabama, Ole Miss home against Tulane, and Texas A&M home against Miami. Texas A&M, that's one team people keep talking about the fact that everybody should be afraid of, but they got a brutal schedule. If they were to go play in the national championship game, they would probably have to beat both Ohio State and Georgia just to get to the championship game.
Yeah, I thought the draw for Indiana worked out really well. I mean, the fact that you have
Ohio for 1 seed, right?
Well, it didn't last year.
Yeah.
Tell that to Ohio.
Last year was, if you 1 seed, was like almost one of the worst.
Yeah, tell it to Oregon last year, and you seen Ohio State the 8-9, and I think that was the interesting element a little bit yesterday when you had some of those projected brackets of Notre Dame potentially in the 8-9 game, but now that it's Oklahoma and Alabama, I think you breathe a little bit. There's probably always a little SEC element to it. I think last year the fact that Notre Dame had to beat Georgia to get on their run, I think that matters. I think for Indiana fans, beating the SEC team, not that Oklahoma and Alabama are viewed as the best team in the SEC this year, but still beating a team from that conference, I think always matters a little bit more, particularly on a neutral field, which is what you would get there. So I don't know. I think that maybe just kind of sweetens the potential path for them to make it all the way to the national title.
Can you imagine Indiana, Ohio State again for a national championship game?
I'd sign up for it. I think it's, as a fan, it'd be an awesome game. I think those are the 2 best teams in college football. And I also want to add this, Kevin, too, and I'm curious because we talked Friday about it. I think both teams really cared. And again, all the talk about conference championships not meaning as much. Both those teams played hard, and it was a fun game to watch. It didn't get the pomp and circumstance because there were no real consequences for the loser in a 1 versus 2 matchup. But I just really appreciated that both teams won it, and I think it makes the Ryan Day point about kicking that field goal all the more head-scratching.
Yeah, and I heard from some Ohio State fans on Sunday of we expended all our energy in Ann Arbor the previous Saturday.
Come on.
I know, but welcome to Ohio State fans. But that is why I am curious for a matchup, for a rematch potentially here in a little over a month, because is that real or is that not? I think it is fair to say the biggest game on Ohio State's schedule before the national title is the Michigan game. I don't think there's any ignoring that. I said it last week. It's why I picked IU. I picked IU in the win because I did think that game mattered more to IU than it did to Ohio State. So what would that play out here in a little over a month? But again, the fact that as a program you get to have that moment on Saturday night, Indiana fans aren't going to care whether Ohio State circled it, more or less on the calendar. And at the end of the day, they ended a 30-year streak against Ohio State and won a Big Ten championship in the state capitol. That's all they care about.
And people are still walking around on cloud nine today, as they should if they're Indiana football fans. They have had an unbelievable dream season, and it continues on as the top seed in the college football playoff. Notre Dame on the outside looking in. We've talked about that a lot. Kevin, did you get it off your chest? Do you feel like you've cleared the air now? We gave you a good 12 minutes a few minutes ago.
Why does BYU drop, but Alabama doesn't?
Because they're Alabama, and the SEC folks who make up a large part of that committee and who drive these things, Alabama's got 3 losses, and they've been awful in the last month, and they got beat by 3 touchdowns in their conference championship game. They don't deserve to be in this playoff. The fact that they've actually risen in the polls while they've been subpar for the last month, and Notre Dame, to your point, has been ripping people apart and has dropped consistently in the last couple of weeks. Why even have the rankings?
It just means more in the SEC, guys. Tennessee and Missouri are quality wins, don't you know? Like, those are good, hard-fought football teams because the SEC is just so competitive.
I think I've bitched and moaned enough. No one wants to hear me bitch and moan anymore. So you're telling me a 4th grader has never seen the Colts win in Jacksonville?
Ever. In his lifetime.
Do I have that right? How old are you in 4th grade?
12?
Is it
11?
fair to say that from Rosie's perspective?
So it's been 11 years, right? 2014, you got to go back. So I don't know, 3rd grader, something like that. You've never seen the Colts.
But even for the younger ones, is it fair to say that in Rosie's lifetime, Trevor Lawrence is Indianapolis's daddy?
Yeah, I don't know. Might
That's sad.
Might be C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud's won all 3 times he's played in Lucas Oil Stadium against the Colts. Both, I guess, could be. Yeah, it just, of all the losses, you could make an argument, of all the losses down there in Jacksonville, yesterday's is the most crippling because of the long-term ramifications of it, of the cloudiness, the murkiness you put on your franchise now. And again, I don't think any of the answers are obvious right now. Okay, it's very easy to say, fire everybody. But as we pointed out all morning long, that means you're handing a new rebuild, no first-round picks?
Not for 2 years. Not just next year. 2027,
right, I said
too.
Picks plurally. Yeah. And again, in my very, very 12-hour, I want to give this more thought, but my first gut is, no, might as well just start Anthony Richardson in 2026. He's under contract for 1 more year. That's not the 5th-year team option. Daniel Jones with an Achilles injury, likely, I guess, out. And so, okay, what do you do quarterback-wise? You don't have a first-round pick. Are you really going to go out there and spend major money? It's weird because so much of your roster says, well, win now. Because look at Buckner's age. Look at Nelson's age. Look at Taylor's age. Look at Franklin's age. Look at Mooney Ward, Kenny Moore. I mean, I can go on and on with all the ages that you have of this roster. But what
can I ask
says to you that you should go out there and all of a sudden spend more? And, what does the Daniel Jones contract look like? I mean, you're not slapping the franchise. The whole franchise tag idea is gone, obviously. So what are you doing contractually with him?
Are you ready? Here's the big question. Are you ready to blow the whole thing up and start over?
I mean, I thought Ballard should have been fired last year. I wrote at the end of the season.
I'm even talking about the roster.
Ballard and Gus Bradley were the 2 that I thought should have gone last year. There is an element to that, Jeff. That thought has also crossed my mind in the last 12 hours. If you start to trade some of these pieces, whatever, Buckner, Taylor, whoever you want to view that could lend something in return, all of a sudden, do you create draft picks that get you back into round 1? Yeah, you are blowing it up, but are you helping out the rebuild a little bit more? I think that's a very real conversation you have to have. And the unknown in all of this is we have no idea how Carly Ursay-Gordon views it.
Yeah, and who would be in charge of the rebuild, too?
And as we've debated here, really ever since Carly was hired, should Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen be tied together? Because if we just gave out individual letter grades for the 2, they would not be the same letter grade. But should GMs and head coaches be tied at the hip no matter when they're hired?
Well, the complicated part about that,
I largely think that,
yeah.
But at the same time, I don't view Ballard and Steichen in their individual jobs in the same light.
And it's always, too, if you do bring in a new general manager, the head coach is not necessarily his guy.
Correct. I mean, look at the Tennessee situation. You know, it rarely goes well. I think San Francisco maybe is one of the few times, right, if I remember correctly, where John Lynch was hired with Kyle Shanahan already on staff, and it's worked out. It's one of the very rare instances in the NFL where you see head coach in place, new GM comes in, and somehow that process works out. So, you know, I assume it'll be Riley Leonard here over the final 4 weeks. That's at Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville, at Houston. You know, weirdly for the playoff crowd out there, maybe we can get more into this on the other side. There's not a lot of basically right now, if you look at the AFC playoffs, you could make the case it's 8 teams for 7 spots.
Yeah.
And if the Chargers lose tonight, the Colts do have the head-to-head, and they have the same record as them. And you could make a case the Chargers' schedule the rest of the season is harder than the Colts' schedule the rest of the year. Now, I say all that and say, are the Colts going to win another game? I mean, you could be looking at, I don't believe Alec Pierce is in concussion protocol. We'll have to see what the injury update is, but let's just play this out. You're looking at a game at Seattle on Sunday, potentially without Daniel Jones, Braden Smith, DeForest Buckner, and Sauce Gardner.
I don't feel confident, Kevin.
And you're a 10-point underdog. So, yeah, the amount of questions that now must be discussed inside of Colts headquarters at 9 a.m. today versus where you were 9 a.m. yesterday is just amazing. Amazing. There are some comparisons to the Tyrese Halliburton thing. I think there are a lot of differences as well. But, man, and I'll just say this, boy, I feel so bad for Daniel Jones. You know, I'm not going to pretend to know Daniel Jones super well. He strikes me as a nice guy. Obviously, he's been pretty subdued with the media, but have heard, you know,
his teammates love him.
Good things about him. And just to watch his frustration on the field and to see, you know, I can imagine he's been through a lot as a professional athlete and not working out in New York, seemingly finding this success here. And then all of a sudden over the last month, it doesn't go well. And not to mention, if you want to just bring up the financials, he probably lost, 50-some million just with that injury. You know, we'll obviously see how it all plays out, but you wish you could just turn off injuries sometimes in sports.
Daniel Jones is 28?
That strikes me as probably right around there. 28, 29, something like that.
So the other thing that Chris Ballard and the Colts have to figure out is you now have an oft-injured guy coming off an Achilles who will be 29. And although they loved what he did the first 8 games of this season, how do you put together a full evaluation now?
Well, the most consistent thing on the Daniel Jones resume, sadly,
his injuries,
is his injury history. That's the most consistent thing on his resume. And again, that's the one gripe if you want to go back to the Sauce Gardner trade, and you had time constraints on it because the trade deadline was there, the one gripe would be, has Daniel Jones earned this? Is 2 months of good football enough for you to make that move? Because Daniel Jones's resume would lead you to say, oh boy, I don't think he has earned that. And I think at the time it was a very fair conversation. Not only just his own individual play, but probably more of his availability. So
the other thing I want to point out too for Anthony Richardson, it felt like at the beginning of the year when they named Daniel Jones the starting quarterback, like they had kind of made their decision to kind of move on from Anthony Richardson as any thought of being a franchise quarterback. It felt that way. Am I overstating that?
No.
Right? And so now he's coming back off an injury. And I know for the crowd that'll say, well, you know, he was 8-7 as a starter. It wasn't a disaster. But you never felt like, hey, this is the guy we're going to hitch our wagons to and it's all going to be good. Do you sign him? Do you pick up that 5th year and say, okay, Anthony Richardson, show us what you got?
Yeah. Right now, I don't think you need to pick that up. But, you know, again, in my 12-hour thoughts, I think Anthony Richardson potentially is your starting quarterback in 2026 is potentially the route to explore. I don't know. If someone wants to present another option to me, I'll happily open my ears and listen to it.
All right, we'll get to some headlines from yesterday's game coming up in a moment, but right now we've got to check it down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Kevin, we're going to start with the good news. The Indiana Hoosiers are the number 1 ranked team in the nation. They are the number 1 seed in the 2025 college football playoff. They have a bye in the first round, and they will be waiting for the winner of Alabama-Oklahoma. They'll play that game at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, New Year's Day at the Rose Bowl. Georgia won the SEC championship game. They are the number 3 seed. Texas Tech, the 4 seed. Interesting that Ohio State stays the number 2 seed and flip-flop. And I go back to what you said a minute ago. You had a pretty good idea that if it was a close-fought game, that Indiana and Ohio State were going to be the 1 and 2 seeds in this college football playoff. Why didn't Ohio State just go for it with really not much to lose there at the very end instead of trying for a tying field goal?
Hell, I thought the dude almost missed the first chip shot. I thought that thing was going to ricochet. I thought we were getting another, what's his name, Michael Badgley off the left upright. A shout out to Blake Grupe, kicking nicely in the rain yesterday. But, yeah, quite the cowardly decision. And then Charlie B. from Tennessee making another play, to quote Gus Johnson, as he hauled that in from Fernando Mendoza to kind of, I think, cement the game and cement the Heisman Trophy as well. And then quite the scene played out from there.
We also have to mention that Notre Dame was left out of the college football playoff 12-team entry. They have decided to not play in any kind of a bowl game. How are you okay? Are you okay with them not playing in a bowl game?
Yeah, I probably should save that for a few more thoughts on that. I don't want to. I think there's a little bit more there than Matt. I don't love it. I also can sit here and say when Sam Hartman decided not to play in a bowl game a few years ago as a future 7th-round pick in the NFL, I thought to myself, are we about done with these bowl games? I mean, opt-outs galore in these bowl games. And, like, there's part of me that wants the NIL to be tied to playing in a postseason game. Like, if I'm, company here or revenue sharing here, and I'm handing you this amount of money, Jeff Rickard, I'm saying to you,
I expect you to be in the bowl game,
play in the postseason game.
Yep.
And I don't care if it's a playoff game or if it's a bowl game.
Yep, I would agree with that. NFL yesterday, obviously the Colts losing in Jacksonville 36-19, but the lead is that Daniel Jones has an Achilles injury. We'll get confirmation later today. If it's torn, it seems to be that that's going to be the case. And let's forego the grand future. What do the Colts do in the immediate at quarterback, Kevin Bowen?
Yeah, I assume it's Riley Leonard. And they do have Brett Rippon on their practice squad. He has started, I want to say it's a handful of games in the NFL. The last time he threw a pass, though, was
that in Denver? Or was that
I would guess in Denver. Removed? I think he got in with Cincinnati earlier this year, but didn't throw a pass. So that was 2023. So, you could go there, but, to me, I just say, hey, treat Riley Leonard like you treated him in the opening drive of the national title game. Run him to death and throw a couple jump balls to Alec Pierce and see what happens.
All right, the Colts now have to get ready for a game coming up next Sunday at home against the Seattle Seahawks, and we'll talk about that more as the week moves along. Last night, AFC South Sunday Night Football, Houston Texans come up with a 20-10 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking about fourth down decisions there, in a game that was still tied and close, second half, Andy Reid on his own 31-yard line goes for a 4th and 1. And fails miserably, and he's taking some criticism for that.
Yeah, that was I didn't get that one at all, especially against that Houston defense. So big win for the Texans. Chiefs on life support, and right now with that win, that did knock the Colts out of the playoff picture. So they are the 8th seed currently. Houston goes above Indianapolis.
And later on tonight, Philadelphia playing Los Angeles on Monday Night Football, the Chargers version of Los Angeles. That is an interesting game from the Colts' perspective, Kevin.
Yes, if you are a fan of the Colts making the playoffs, you want the Eagles badly tonight.
Mark not here today, but I did want to mention that the Green Bay Packers did beat the Chicago Bears because he's probably listening somewhere right now. Just want to throw that in. Caleb, got a big grin on your face there.
You'll have to answer to him tomorrow. So,
all right.
Knowing Mark, he's going to remember that one.
NBA later on tonight, the Indiana Pacers coming off a victory Friday night on the road in Chicago will be taking on the Sacramento Kings. If you're a Domantas Sabonis fan, you will not be able to see him tonight, Kevin.
Pacers favored.
I like that. That doesn't happen very often.
Again, nice road win. Their first one of the year on Friday. Siakam, Mathurin, great. And the Ethan Thompson story. We'll probably get more into it tomorrow with Rick Carlisle, but makes his NBA debut, plays well for the team. Unfortunately, the Pacers have had a few of these stories this season, but really cool to see.
Also in the NBA last night, Oklahoma City, a win over the Utah Jazz by 30 points. They are 23-1, KB. They are rolling through not just the Western Conference, but all of the NBA right now. College basketball yesterday, Indiana State, a winner over Southern Indiana, 77-55 was the final score there. One other football game I did want to bring up over the weekend. DePauw season's come to an end in Division III. They lost their second-round playoff game to Wheaton. 49-24 was the final score in that one.
Yeah, only other one I wanted to mention, shout out to the volleyball programs in West Lafayette and Bloomington, both in the Sweet 16 for IU. It's really unprecedented. I think they've got number one Texas coming up here in the Sweet 16 round. Purdue's had a great run under Dave Shondell, and they are back in the Sweet 16.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the check down. We'll talk about the Colts and maybe some people's thoughts on that. You can hit us up on the text line, 239-1070, all about the Achilles, I think, for the Colts, and we'll talk about it next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Leonard on second down gives off to Jonathan Taylor. Powering, he lost the ball inside the 30-yard line, and it's picked up by the Jaguars. Taylor was fighting for extra yards, and in the process, the ball came out. It's a recovery by Jerrion Jones, the cornerback, and the Colts have just turned it over in their own territory.
The highs, the lows. Being a sports fan, Indiana on the way to the college football playoff, the number 1 seed. Watching video right now on ESPN of Daniel Jones limping off the field in Jacksonville yesterday, and we'll get confirmation later today whether or not he did, in fact, tear that Achilles, but all you need to see is him slamming that helmet down on the sideline and going immediately to the blue tent. Kevin, that was the look of a man who knew exactly what had just happened.
Yeah, it felt awful for him. Everything he's been through, leaving New York, and what he's found here, and I know his play had dipped a little bit over the last month. I thought it was a really, really bad interception to start the game yesterday. Unfortunately, you just feel awful for him. Seems like a good dude and everything.
People still want to talk about the defense, though. Dude from Cicero says, enjoy the show. A couple of things, though. Can we finally talk about the defense? Always, Gaps, giving up the big play and third down conversions consistently all season, every season. They looked amazing first 2 weeks, steady decline since, and I understand they mostly keep points low, but 13-10 is still a loss. A game like yesterday makes everybody feel about how this defense is 95% of the season. So just not happy generally with the Colts as the season has progressed, and we've talked about that. It's one of the reasons they went out and got Sauce Gardner, and for the most part, they just haven't had a consistent pass rush along that defensive front, and got even harder when DeForest Buckner goes out because now he's not even there's nobody there demanding a double team, even in the middle of the line.
Yeah, I think if you were looking at the season as a whole, what are the Colts, 14 games in, something like that, 13, I'd put that defensive effort yesterday up there with one of the worst of the year. And I get no Gardner, no Buckner. Jacksonville would counter and say, we didn't have our left tackle, we didn't have our leading pass catcher. Okay? Season high. Trevor Lawrence doesn't look like that all year. For those that have not watched the Jags, that was the best game. In that weather, Trevor Lawrence produced that. You did not hit or sack him one time. How do you not just fall into one of those? How does Trevor Lawrence not just trip and fall and, Samson Ebukam just steps on him?
And that offensive line for Jacksonville wasn't at full strength either.
No, they were without their left tackle, like I said. And big picture, meeting the moment. It's weird for me to say the moment is Jacksonville and Houston, but those are the teams in your division. And in the Steichen era, you're 2-8 against them. 2-8 against the Texans. And we don't talk about the Texans and Jags like we talk about, other vaunted teams in the NFL. No one is talking about them in the top 5, 10. I don't even know if they're talking about in the top 15 of the league over the last 3 years. Hell, Jacksonville fired their coach. So I think that is bothersome. I know we touched on it a little bit earlier. I want to go back to that sequence late first half because I thought the game was still real right after Grover Stewart got the forced fumble. I think in the rain games, anything can happen.
Yeah, you get a turnover here, maybe get a pick. Who knows?
I mean, we saw fumbles there in the second quarter by both teams. And when you got that forced fumble and you are across the 50 and it's now under 2 minutes, I'm thinking to myself, okay, you get score here. Now you go into halftime, get the ball to start the third, and now potentially, we're looking at a tie game or we're looking at a 3-point game, 4-point game, and now game pressure's back on. Mm-hmm. And when you got the 3rd and 1 and the 4th and 1, and with Riley Leonard, and where is Riley Leonard gifted? With his legs, either running it purely or just making, plays, whether he's scrambling to keep a play alive, like the first third down conversion he had to Pierce. He rolls out to the left, he all of a sudden keeps the play alive, then he throws that little dump pass kind of to Pierce. You threw a pocket pass, which is not Riley Leonard's strength at all, to Mo Alley-Cox. Now that sets up 4th and 1. Everybody in the world knows Jonathan Taylor's going to get the ball on 4th and 1 after you threw it on 3rd and 1. Boom, Jacksonville blows it up. To me, that was way too greedy from Shane Steichen. In that weather, rookie quarterback, first meaningful snaps in the NFL, play to his strengths. Or just run it with Taylor on 3rd down, and then if you're in a 4th down, you run it again or cross that bridge when it comes. That's how I would have approached it. Hell, QB sneak it with Leonard.
One thing that was interesting, and J.J. Watt talked about this a little bit too, is there any kind of fear that, look, Riley Leonard does run the ball well. But if you start to utilize him a lot as a runner and he gets cracked and he gets hurt, now what do you do?
Well, who cares?
Yeah, you got to try to win a football game, right?
Who cares? I mean, we can't be playing with kid gloves. You're in the
NFL. Go play.
You're on your sixth string or your sixth-round pick at quarterback. Well, one thing I also wanted to bring up from the game, because I know we got this a lot of this debate last Monday. Remember, one of the big discussion points last Monday, Jeff, was why does Steichen take the ball to start the game? It was funny, as I saw the weather forecast play out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it hit me because all the weather forecasts pointed to more rain as the game moved along. It hit me like, if you win the coin toss, you take the ball. You want the ball when it's the best weather, when you're not dealing with
That was a rare break in the weather for the first
sloppy
quarter there,
conditions.
yeah.
The first quarter was actually rather tame. And sure enough, the Colts win the toss and they defer. And I thought to myself, boy, I get that that's the common thought. But in the weather games, you often see teams like play to the wind in the weather. Hey, I want the wind, when we have the ball, if possible. If not, I want to try to get it in the fourth quarter, or something like that when I know what score and time is and all of that. I actually thought that was a mistake yesterday. Now, having said that, Daniel Jones threw a pick in the perfect weather. Or I say perfect, in the best weather that there was yesterday.
Sam from Newcastle says, looks like AR next year and maybe the return of Jones the year after. I don't know if it's quite that simple right now, Kevin.
Again, all of these questions are fair to be asked. All of them have very difficult answers. I saw someone point out in the text line, could Riley Leonard show you anything over the final 4 weeks of the season that leads to him being in a quarterback competition for next year? You wouldn't just give the keys to him, of course, but would you have a quarterback competition? Man, if you're not laughing at some of this, you're going to be crying.
Quick timeout. We'll finish up strong with a couple more of your thoughts here on the fan text line at 239-1070. Get you ready to go for a Monday where, at least if you're an Indiana football fan, you can celebrate today, and you should be celebrating and lean into that. It's all coming up on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Feel good for Don Fisher spoke in his voice and that enthusiasm for every Indiana Hoosier football fan ever, Kevin, because man, did that moment arrive. And now, as the coach said on the big platform afterwards, he's got 2 weeks to get these guys hungry and humble again.
3.5, right?
3.5. Well, yeah, before they get back to work, really get back to preparing for a specific opponent.
New Year's Day, 4:00. Fernando Mendoza's high school coach going to join us coming up tomorrow. So we should have Rick Carlisle and Dave Dunn, who I know is really close with Fernando. And shout out Anthony Calhoun from Wish. It's all caught up with Fernando's mom, who has MS. Post game there. I know we've talked about the story before on air. Fernando and his brother partnered from an NIL standpoint, helped raise some money for MS. And
his brother got to play a play.
His brother did. Boy, how about that moment?
That was scary, too.
Unbelievable. What a hit from Caden Curry. Legal hit from Caden Curry, the Center Grove product, who I thought played really well.
Took Fernando a moment to get his faculty's name, rank, and serial number all straight again.
Can you imagine if that injury would have occurred and then coupled with what we just witnessed on Sunday?
I think that was the classic, you literally had the wind knocked out of you kind of moment, wasn't it?
A lot of wind, I feel like I was knocked out of him with that hit there. So New Year's Day, Alabama or Oklahoma for Indiana in that quarterfinal matchup. Oklahoma can't move the football, and Alabama is really banged up and has played pretty bad football over the last month.
All right. You ready for the list of free agent quarterbacks on the market next year in the NFL, Kevin?
No, jeez.
You ready for this?
Are we really there?
Are you ready for this? Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Jimmy Garoppolo. It's essentially the usual suspects.
I'd rather put mayo in my coffee than hear that list.
That's the list, guys.
Again, all these questions are now having to be asked. Do you re-sign Daniel Jones? What does that contract even begin to look like? Are you essentially giving him money to redshirt if you sign him to a multi-year deal? And then does he just get the keys for 2027?
I don't know you have any better option, though, do you?
Right. I mean, again, I need more time to process it all. Part of me just says let Anthony Richardson play in 2026 and see what you have, but blowing the whole thing up might have to be a part of it, which goes against so much of what they've been or what they've tried to do. But if you're going to have as advantageous as a rebuild as possible without 2 first-round picks, I think you have to almost go down that path.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Kevin, you talked about Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard being tied at the hip. Do you also think Daniel, it's a 3 people tied to the hip? Can you see a world where Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are here, but it's another? I know next year you have no choice if they're here, but then even looking 2 years down the line, a different quarterback being here, I don't see how that's the case. I don't. How do you begin to process that? Is this 3 people tied at the hip is my question.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would think that way about the pillars. To me, the pillars of the organization are quarterback, head coach, and GM, and they all should be tied together. Yeah, it's a fair point to bring up because anytime you bring in a new regime, no one's safe. No one's safe. That's just the reality of how these things work in pro sports. So, it's amazing how quickly it can unravel for you. Just 1 month ago, you're the 1 seed. And here you are. And obviously, it was starting to slip. They were starting to see, even yesterday, before the Jones injury, it wasn't going well. But then to have the injury likely take him off the field for the 2026 season, that just adds a whole nother layer on it. If he would have if that would have been a strained calf and he were to miss 2 to 3 weeks, that's probably a different conversation. I get that some people were still skeptical of Jones even before yesterday.
Yeah, there were still a lot of people that were not completely sold on that. And so, again, I sound speechless because I think we all are. What do you do? What do you do at this point in time, Kevin? There's no obvious path. There's no You don't have draft picks to build around. You're not getting any younger at a lot of these positions. Daniel Jones, even if you keep him, is going to be available to you for most of, if not all of next year. I don't know what else you can do except turn it over to Anthony Richardson at this point in time. What are your options?
Well, and not that Anthony Richardson has, earned the right to dictate terms, but is there any part of Anthony Richardson's camp that says, I don't want to do this. I need a fresh start? I mean, we do see guys around professional sports try to demand that at all times. And, do the Colts, does Anthony Richardson deserve another chance? All these questions. It's not like Anthony Richardson's injury history has gotten any cleaner this season, as sad as that is. So it's just, all of it sounds complicated as hell.
I mean, this is a season where you've had guys injured and out
all
multiple
of it just
games.
Says everybody should be an IU football fan for the next month.
Yeah, no doubt. Last thing I was going to say about the Colts is this is a season where you've had injuries, multiple game injuries suffered in pregame warmups or in the locker room, and then you throw the Daniel Jones thing on top of that, and then right after you trade 2 first-round draft picks for Sauce Gardner, he gets, just after a couple of weeks, injured for multiple games. I mean, that's been the entire season right now. It's insane to me. Just insane to me. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Continue talking about all of this, of course, with Jay Query coming your way at noon today. Then JMV does his thing from 3 to 6, and I'm sure that is going to be a ride of rides today as well. But congratulations to Indiana football. They are on the way to the Rose Bowl. They'll skip the first round of the college football playoffs. They'll be the number 1 seed. They'll play the winner of Alabama-Oklahoma. Have yourself a terrific day. Thanks for all the texts and phone calls today. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. JB will be back. Enjoy your Monday. Tell me when you're ready. Coming up in 3, 2, 1. Coming up Tuesday morning on the Fan Morning Show, a talk. Coming up in 3, 2, 1. Coming up Tuesday morning on the Fan Morning Show, we'll speak with head coach Rick Carlisle, the Indiana Pacers, and the high school coach of Fernando Mendoza. Coming up Tuesday morning on the Fan Morning Show, we'll speak with Rick Carlisle about the Indiana Pacers and the high school.